Suddenly, a knife flew in from out of nowhere, halting the silver-haired girl's escape. Yet, it didn't harm a single hair on her head. The one controlling the knife slowly walked towards her and gently called out, "Eli." Hearing the familiar voice, she immediately turned around. Her eyes met the affectionate gaze and relieved smile of the golden-haired man before her. Astonished, she called out, "Rockin'." Without a word, he suddenly pressed her against a bookshelf and grabbed the knife, throwing it to the ground. He then raised his voice and demanded, "Why did you do that?" Eli lowered her head and softly said, "I'm sorry." Rockin suddenly grabbed a lock of her hair, scoffed, and continued his questioning. "Sorry? Eli, if you wanted to run away from me, you should have gone through with it." She didn't reply, instead thinking to herself with distress, "Why did it come to this? If I had known it would turn out like this from the start. No, perhaps it would have been better if we had never met." Rewinding back to 2 years prior, at the kingdom's castle, someone suddenly spoke, "Princess, please listen. There are many people from the Empire at the Academy, so you must be even more careful. I hear that even the Empire's prince is studying there." Eli replied with a bright smile, "I know." She then thought to herself, even Nanny is worried. The reason Nanny is worried is the hostility between the kingdom of Optisia and the Kasucha Empire. 20 years ago, during the war caused by the Empire's invasion, even though there's a ceasefire, there's been no interaction, only a vague tension between the two sides. In this situation, I, the Princess of Optisia, have been accepted into the Swana Royal Academy in a neutral country. Eli smiled reassuringly and said, "Don't worry, Nanny. I'll be going now." Her nanny anxiously asked, "Princess, have you forgotten anything?" Eli clenched her fist and confidently replied, "Oh, of course not. Don't you trust me now, Nanny?" The nanny continued uneasily, "My professional ethics dictate that I should keep the princess here." She reiterated, "Once again, Princess, you must not fight with the Empire's prince." Eli, sweating a little, chuckled and replied, "Fight? There's no chance of even meeting him." The nanny furrowed her brows and said with some embarrassment, Well, that is, the princess's personality is..." Eli finished the sentence in her mind, predictable, even without hearing the rest. Handing Eli her suitcase, the nanny said with a hint of reluctance, "I've finished packing your luggage." Eli suddenly hugged her nanny tightly and said with a beaming smile, "Nanny, I know you're sad that I'm leaving. I'll do well and come back without causing you any worry." Touched, the nanny called out, "Princess." Then she asked seriously, "Princess, do you have your admission certificate? I don't see it in your bag." This caused Eli to freeze for a moment. A little later, at the castle gate, Eli quickly said goodbye. "Well, I'm really off now." The nanny, worried, called out, "If things get difficult, Princess, you can come back anytime." Waving goodbye with a cheerful smile, Eli replied, "That won't happen, so don't worry." But soon after, she broke out in a sweat, thinking to herself, "I'm already having a crisis." The girls' dormitory of the academy in the neutral nation of Swana. "Seriously, Nanny, it's just school. Why did you pack so many dresses?" Then, feeling slightly relieved, she said, "Good thing my roommate isn't here yet." Just as she finished speaking, there was a sudden knock at the door. Startled, she thought, "Oh, my roommate is here." She quickly called out, wait a moment." Then, rushing to open the door, she worried to herself, what if they asked to switch rooms? With a forced smile, she explained, "Sorry, I haven't finished unpacking yet." The purple-haired girl asked with a gentle smile, "Ah, you're Princess Elijah, the new student, right? The headmaster has called for you." Eli, a little surprised, replied, "Oh, I'll go right away." As she walked, she couldn't help but wonder, what does the headmaster need to see me about? The purple-haired girl explained, "Well, it's like this. At the academy, to help new students adjust, they have a system where upperclassmen are assigned to support new students during their first few months." Glancing around, she continued with a smile, "I think I saw that in the orientation materials. It's so spacious." Pointing to a nearby door, the purple-haired girl said, "You'll hear the details inside." Eli politely replied, "Excuse me for the trouble." A voice called out, "Come in." Stroking his beard, the headmaster greeted her, "I am the headmaster of Swana Academy. It's a pleasure to meet you." Eli politely replied, "It's an honor to meet you, headmaster. I am Elijah, Princess of Optisia. Pleased to make your acquaintance." The headmaster quickly gestured and said, "Oh, no need for formalities. Please have a seat." He suddenly asked, "Do you know why I called you here?" "Yes," Eli replied. "I heard it was about the upperclassman assignment." The headmaster cleared his throat and said, "Ahem, first, I have a question for you. Sometimes we have students who are concerned with social standing outside of these walls. So, I'd like to know which type you are to better understand. Eli gently lifted her teacup and said, "From the moment I stepped through the main gate, I am just a student of this academy, as is everyone else." The headmaster chuckled and said, "I'm glad to hear that." Eli wondered to herself, why would he ask such a thing? Is he worried that, as a princess, I might disrespect the upperclassmen? Come to think of it, the orientation materials were quite clear about informing the upperclassmen. Is this also because I'm a princess? Hearing a knock, the headmaster said, "Ah, it seems they've arrived." Before he could speak further, the person at the door asked, "These sorts of things are usually communicated by letter, aren't they? There are always exceptions, though I find this a waste of time." Eli, hearing this, thought with a wry smile, "They don't seem very friendly." The headmaster quickly stood up and said cheerfully, Now, let's not be like that. Let's have some introductions. Princess Elijah, allow me to introduce." Eli didn't know who it was, but as she turned, her jaw dropped. Astonished, Eli watched as the headmaster, seemingly oblivious to her reaction, continued the introduction. "He'll be your upperclassman, Rockin." Seeing the distinct lack of warmth in her senior's gaze, Eli simply thought, wow, he's quite handsome. Then, she quickly offered a greeting. "Ah, hello, upperclassmen." Eli performed a perfect princess curtsy. "That it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Elijah." Inwardly, she rejoiced. It's such a surprise that such a handsome person is my upperclassman. However, Eli couldn't help but notice the complete lack of friendliness in his eyes. The headmaster suddenly spoke, interrupting Eli's growing unease at Rockin's reaction. All right. Eli, a mixture of anxious and bewildered, shrank back like a scolded kitten. Is something wrong? Did he just grimace at me? Is he from the Empire?" Oblivious, the headmaster continued, "I called you two here to foster a good relationship between upper and underclassmen. So, could you two get to know each other and become closer?" Eli hesitantly started to reply, the thing is, however, she couldn't bring herself to openly point out the utter misery etched on her handsome senior's face upon their first meeting. "Headmaster, are you sure you're seeing this correctly? Even after seeing that, you're still saying that?" As she glanced at the headmaster, she was met with a look so bright and expectant it was practically blinding. He seemed to be asking, "Are you okay? Can you do this? I believe in you." Eli inwardly sighed. "Are you sure you're seeing this?" 1,000 whys swirled in her mind, but the situation demanded she keep them to herself. So, she forced a laugh out. "Ha, of course, headmaster." Meanwhile, her inner thoughts screamed, "There's no way I can ask to switch now." The headmaster promptly stood up and told Eli, "Wonderful, but I have a meeting now." Eli obediently bowed her head and replied, "Ah, yes." The headmaster gave her a playful wink as he headed for the door, and "No need to rush on my account. Take your time chatting." Eli offered a strained smile, completely baffled by the headmaster's cheerful insistence, yes. The moment he left the room, the pleasant atmosphere vanished. Eli thought, in this atmosphere, what are we even supposed to talk about? But then, surprisingly, her frosty senior spoke. "That I have a question. This whole thing, you didn't orchestrate it, did you?" Eli froze, her mind reeling what? She gaped at Rockin, taken aback by his blunt question. What is he talking about, this imperial person? She needed clarification. "What do you mean?" Rockin casually put his hands in his pockets and walked towards Eli, like I said, to build a relationship with me. He reached out, his hand boldly cupping her chin as he asked, "You didn't arrange all of this, right?" Rockin's teasing question and gesture truly angered Eli. She frowned, annoyed, and brushed his hand away abruptly. "Are you imperial?" Rockin maintained his flippant demeanor. "Indeed," he replied, "and you are the princess of Opsha." Eli sharply retorted to Rockin's somewhat provocative statement. "I understand you harboring animosity towards me, coming from the Empire, but secretly orchestrating things isn't my style." Rockin's entire being suddenly exuded an indescribable charm, making him appear rather narcissistic. "My appearance is perfectly suited to your taste." Unreasonably, Eli couldn't bring herself to be enraged, so she could only respond softly. "Oh, really? Where do you get this absurd self-confidence?" Rockin now resembled a self-absorbed fanatic. He casually answered her question. "I told you, didn't I? Wealth, power, and even appearance. I'll say this beforehand. Don't get your hopes up. We're just senior and junior. Nothing more, nothing less." Rockin brushed past Eli to leave. However, just as his hand touched the doorknob, Eli suddenly spoke. "Excuse me, senior." She turned around and flatly said to Rockin, "I don't care if you're dating a teacup or having a love affair with a pigeon. Don't bother with me." Having said that, Eli frowned, irritated, and quickly brushed past him to leave. I'll excuse myself. She clearly displayed her annoyance on her beautiful face. Just how narcissistic is that crazy guy? Eli stomped her feet on the floor. The first Imperial person I meet is like this? How unlucky. At the neutral Squana Academy, where everyone is treated equally regardless of their background. I can't believe I ran into such an unfortunate noble. Most of the newly enrolled students were from the upper class, but even with the rules, would it be difficult for the nobles to accept? Upon reaching her room, Eli suddenly noticed, the door is open. Could it be my roommate? Right, my luggage is a mess. Eli quickly rushed inside, and then she saw an incredibly beautiful girl. The girl greeted her first. Oh, you're my roommate. She gave an embarrassed smile and told Eli, sorry for touching your things without permission. When I was moving my stuff in, the servants were having trouble, so I rearranged things a bit. Eli didn't feel bothered by it at all. She quickly ran over and took her new roommate's hand. It's okay, you helped me. What's your name in class? Her enthusiasm surprised her new roommate. I'm Sophie Windreaker, class 2. Eli thought to herself, if she's a Windreaker, she's definitely Imperial. So Eli quickly introduced herself to Sophie. I'm Eli Waiter of the Opsha Kingdom. Sophie exclaimed, oh, so you're the princess. Eli smiled brightly and told her, I'm just a freshman. Please speak comfortably. Sophie still seemed a bit cautious about suddenly being roommates with Eli. But I'm just a commoner. Will you be okay? Eli didn't see any problem with it. Of course, it's the school rules, after all. Sophie truly let go of her guard and the feeling of class difference. Her smile deepened. Really? Then I'll speak comfortably. Thank you. Eli was a little surprised by Sophie's apparent delight at this news. That happy? Aristocratic habits die hard, I guess. She told Sophie she'd just been assigned a senior student as a direct mentor. His name was Rockin. Seeing the pained expression on Eli's face, Sophie looked perplexed. Oh dear. She quickly offered Eli some comfort. I'm sure the headmaster has his reasons. Eli, I can only offer you one piece of advice. Eli was surprised by Sophie's serious tone. What? Now she truly understood why Sophie had given her that warning back in class. Overall, her position next to Rockin was prominent. All the female students were looking at Rockin with sparkling eyes. There's so many seats. Why are they all gathered around this guy? She could only look helplessly at the person beside her. T first. I just looked at his appearance and thought he was all right. But his personality is really nothing special. She felt uncomfortable that on her first day, she had become the center of attention. However, she had a generous perspective on Rockin. Well, I'm sure he has his own difficulties. Rockin only now seemed to notice the person next to him. Eli sat still as a stone statue. Her posture wasn't nearly as relaxed as the person next to her. Eli groaned internally. At this rate, I'll break my neck. Her stomach churned, and all she could think about was returning to the dormitory. She glanced at Rockin again. He was now listening intently to the lecture. She shook her head to force herself awake. Oh, I dozed off. Was I caught? Wait, he can't see me. Rockin rested his chin on his hand, the corner of his mouth seeming to twitch upwards. Eli watched the lecturer below, enthusiastically delivering the lesson. Instead of this, professor, do we really need to rush through the entire syllabus on the first day? Then, her wish was granted as the professor announced. That concludes today's lecture. A slender hand tapped lightly on the desk where she was sitting. She heard an announcement. Next is Swordsmanship class. Please proceed to the training grounds. All the students quickly began to move. Eli followed suit. Oh, right. Eli hugged the stack of books in her arms, her mind still elsewhere. She shuffled along, groaning, ugh, I'm so tired. Then she heard someone call out to her, Dado, by the way. It was Rockin, who had appeared beside her at some point. Princess, your handwriting is truly a work of art. Eli hadn't yet fully woken up to grasp the meaning of his words. What? Then she jolted, quickly realizing what he meant. Eli's head spun, her cheeks flushing crimson as she dropped her pen. She understood that Rockin's tapping on the desk had inadvertently revealed that she, too, had dozed off during class. He saw everything? Oh, how embarrassing. Why'd I have to let him see me like that? Mortified, she forgot to ask for directions to the training grounds. As she fumbled around, trying to find her way, a voice suddenly called out from behind her. Excuse me. The caller was a girl with an air of elegance. Are you Eli? Eli looked her up and down, noticing a pair of sparkling red jeweled earrings. Her vibrant pink hair and the hand fan she held accentuated her elegance. She suddenly tilted her head and gave a bright, practiced smile, greeting Eli. Are you Eli? Eli quickly responded, yes, that's right. Do you know me? She was so surprised she covered her mouth with her hand to avoid any unseemly reactions. Who is this? She looks so glamorous. Ah, that's why she looks familiar. She was sitting right above Rockin. The girl unfolded her hand fan and gave a knowing smile, her voice laced with something unusual. How could I not know? Everyone's curious about the person who became Rockin's Jr. Eli, seemingly oblivious to the girl's provocative undertone, smiled brightly and replied, "Oh, is that so?" However, her heart began to stir. Something's off. This feels hostile. The girl abruptly changed the subject, turning to introduce herself to Eli. "I'm Elizabeth Maki, Princess of the Suddy Kingdom. You can call me Beth." Eli didn't immediately respond to the greeting. She thought to herself, if it's the Suddy Kingdom, then that's the country known for its mining, right? Although they don't have any relations with Apsha because of the distance. I've heard they have an alliance with the Empire. The enemy of your friend is your enemy. So is she being cautious? Eli carefully chose her words. It's nice to meet you, but is there something you need? After her question, Elizabeth seemed displeased and narrowed her eyes. She drew out a breath, tilting her head with sparkling eyes, waiting for Eli's response. "I was really looking forward to meeting the Princess of Apsha, thinking she'd be very beautiful. But you look more rustic than I expected." Suddenly hit with such an unexpected and critical remark, Eli couldn't bring herself to smile. She stared at Elizabeth, thinking my heart is growing cold. Seems I was right. She intends to provoke me right now. I'm not generous enough to overlook such blatant provocation. However, her nanny's reminder echoed in her mind. "Please remember this, Princess. Within the school grounds, there is to be no fighting or foul language. No, you must behave and conduct yourself properly. Remember that overlooking things with a smile is true social grace." Eli reminded herself firmly, "Right? I can't break my promise to Nanny on the very first day." So, Eli forced a rather strained smile in response to Elizabeth. "I suppose I might look a bit rustic. I'm not very good at doing my own makeup. I'm so envious of your skills." It was meant as a polite compliment, but it landed as a critical hit on Elizabeth. Nobles, just like children, not a cute and precious existence, but an existence that can't do anything without the help of servants. The more noble the family, the more they pride themselves on not lifting a finger. Eli's words were a great insult to Elizabeth. As expected, Elizabeth immediately fell into a state of intense overthinking, fuming with anger. Does she mean to mock me, a noble, for doing my own makeup like a commoner? How dare she insult me and my kingdom? How dare she look down on me? Well, no one can spit in the face of a smiling person. Keep the compliments coming. Eli continued her conversation with Elizabeth. "You said you're from the Suddy Kingdom, right?" Elizabeth quickly replied, "Yes." Eli's next words hit a nerve, striking at Elizabeth's, and indeed the entire Suddy Kingdom's, current anxieties. "Even here at school, your accessories are dazzling. The Suddy Kingdom truly is wealthy." Eli chuckled inwardly after saying this. The Suddy Kingdom's recent financial difficulties were widely known, but Elizabeth, a new student fresh from her homeland, couldn't possibly be unaware. This clearly angered Elizabeth. Does she think I don't know? I'm trying my best not to let our financial struggles show. Eli tilted her head, observing Elizabeth fuming, her whole body trembling. "She's completely clueless, insulting me, a princess, for my supposed extravagance. And with such an innocent face, too." Eli, seizing the opportunity, added fuel to the fire. "It's beautiful," she told Elizabeth. "It really suits you." Eli smiled at Elizabeth, anticipating her next move, while inwardly congratulating herself. "Look, Nanny, if I put my mind to it, I can do it too." Elizabeth was on the verge of tears. Does she mean to mock me? Does she think my taste is that gaudy? Is she laughing at me? Just then, Eli noticed a blonde nobleman in the distance, asking his friend something. "Oh, is it the training uniform? The training grounds are that way, aren't they?" Eli quickly looked for an escape. Pointing towards the two, she told Elizabeth, "I have my next class, so I'll be going." "It was nice meeting you." No reply. "Beth, sometimes silence is consent. From now on, this is how it's going to be. React kindly and gently." Now, thanks to being late, Eli found herself facing an opponent rather larger than herself. "I was determined to be good for all of 3 minutes," she grumbled internally. "I knew there wouldn't be any other girls in this class, but did they really have to skip the weight classes?" Rockin, glancing over, immediately recognized Eli's predicament. "It seems you're having some trouble," he began. "Perhaps the deadline for adjusting class registration has passed." However, Eli cut him off before he could finish. "No, I'm fine." Eli bravely shook hands with her much larger opponent, declaring, "Give it your all. Don't hold back just because I'm a girl." The boy earnestly replied, "All right." As the match began, Eli had a flicker of regret. Despite her competitive spirit, he's really big and heavy. Even the practice sword is vibrating in my hands. Eli thought, I can't drag this out. Her opponent truly wasn't holding back, as requested. Even though Eli swung her sword with all her might, the situation didn't improve much. Then, suddenly, her opponent's sword clattered to the ground. He stammered in shock, I lost. Eli was equally surprised by her victory that I won. Rakin suddenly clapped, praising them both. His expression, however, didn't quite match his words. That was a good match. But even if you have the stamina, rushing to finish the match is exactly why you lost. Remember that. The larger boy looked surprised, caught off guard. He stammered, yes, thank you. He was sweating profusely. Just who is that person? He wondered. Rakin switched his attention faster than someone flipping a pancake. He said to Eli, I never expected the princess to be so skilled. Eli thought differently. She knew he wasn't genuinely praising her. Not only was he cheering on his junior, but he was also giving advice to his opponent. Then, her heart skipped a beat at Rakin's next words. If you don't mind, could you teach me a move? Eli asked, bewildered what? She was puzzled. He always treated her like an annoying junior. So why would he want her to teach him? Why? Every time I see this person, my fighting spirit flares up. Is it because he's from a rival kingdom? Or is it because of my bad first impression of him? I really don't know why I feel this way. Eli quickly agreed to Rakin's request. All right, he casually told her, go easy on me, okay? Eli was ready. She assumed a fighting stance from the very first movement. It has to end with a single blow, she thought, calculating that if I attack low, the upper body will come down, then I can move in and strike at the neck. So, when the match began, her first sword strike was aimed low. However, despite her careful calculations, Rakin anticipated it, and her sword was quickly blocked. Rakin smiled at her. Eli lunged again with a different strike, aiming high this time. Her sword was once again predicted and blocked by Rakin. Her heart pounded, blocked again. The sword Rakin held was suddenly pointed straight up at the sky. Then, Eli saw him close his eyes, as if calculating something. Rakin took a step back and pointed the tip of his sword down at the ground, leaving Eli stunned. She stared at him, wondering, why not strike down? Why step back? Could it be? Eli furrowed her brow in concern. Why is he looking at me like that? Both of them were still sizing each other up, neither daring to make a reckless attack. The match was intense, especially with the shouts and cheers of the surrounding crowd. Eli adjusted her reverse grip on her sword, preparing to attack. But no matter what she tried, her sword was blocked by Rakin. This time, the force Rakin used was powerful, pressing in on her, leaving Eli startled and unable to react. She heard him praise, well done. Immediately after the compliment, her sword was knocked upwards and fell silently to the ground. Rakin's sword point was mercilessly aimed at her neck. Eli stood frozen, looking at him, feeling boufusu, but acknowledging, even with the opportunity, this is all I could do. She placed her hand on his sword and admitted defeat. Yes, I lost. Rakin turned away arrogantly. Before leaving, he didn't forget to tell her, all right, you need to train harder. Eli immediately called out to him. Rakin stopped and then heard her firmly say, Senior, I have something to say. Let's meet outside for a bit. As everyone finished their swordsmanship practice and dusk began to fall, Eli sought out Rakin as previously planned. She bluntly told him, if you're just going to go easy on me like that, why not just let me win? Rakin feigned surprise and asked Eli, what are you talking about? Though shorter than Rakin by a head, Eli's demeanor, while speaking, was much more imposing. Unafraid, she said, stop playing around with me. I was trying my best, but you weren't. Eli thought with dissatisfaction, he acts like he cares, but he's actually looking down on me. Back in Octesia, just because he couldn't point his sword at a female royal, she couldn't find a worthy opponent. I don't want to experience the same thing here. Traveling so far to study will become meaningless. Rakin was briefly silent, perhaps searching for the right words to speak to her. He turned his head away, replying to Eli without meeting her gaze, my duty and responsibility is to take care of royalty. That single sentence, combined with his attitude, was enough to infuriate El.so. I don't like that, she said, pretending to fight, but actually holding back. She remembered Rakin's gaze during their match. It made her uncomfortable. Eli asked Rakin, are you going to continue like that? I faced your sword directly, so I'm certain about it. So next time, show me your true strength. You won't be as relaxed as you were. Just now, Eli suddenly smiled that I'll definitely win convincingly. Rakin remained silent again. It seemed he had difficulty understanding what she was saying, sometimes responding with something completely unrelated to her previous statements. Like now, for instance, Rakin complimented her, perceptive. Eli cheerfully replied, I hear that often. Rockin told her, all right, I understand what you mean. I apologize for what happened earlier. I wanted to see your true skills, not humiliate you. Eli's eyes widened slightly at his words. But why go easy on me? Rockin answered her question as honestly as he could. It's a habit I formed after entering this school. I don't want to see anyone's blood spilled here. Eli was surprised by his thinking. He talks as if someone would get hurt. Even if the Empire has minor conflicts, the situation isn't so bad that they'd order all nobles to participate in the fighting. He's the type to worry in advance, huh? Ellie smiled brightly, like a benevolent fairy, and told him, anyway, I accept your apology, so next time, let's have a proper match. Rockin seriously replied, of course, Princess. Ellie secretly felt a bit fortunate. Honestly, she hadn't expected him to apologize so frankly. He had the arrogance of a nobleman, but he wasn't narrow-minded. As Ellie was busy with her rest and recuperation, someone suddenly called her name. Ellie, it's me. Her roommate, Sophie, entered and immediately realized Ellie was sleeping. She said apologetically, oh dear, were you resting? Sorry for waking you. Ellie sat up and smiled. She approached Sophie and whispered, I can't sleep alone and leave my roommate on our first night at school, can I? Sophie, feeling less guilty about waking Ellie, replied, were you waiting for me? Thank you. When both were settled in their beds, Ellie suddenly asked, oh, about the Empire's prince. Can I ask you about him? Sophie, surprised, asked, you haven't met him? Ellie, as if it were the most normal thing, nodded, the school is too big. Sophie asked again, really? Ellie hesitated, replying haltingly yes. Sophie sensed something unusual in Ellie's question. Did you skip a class on me? Sophie stammered, well, there's a lot of information about the prince. Ellie burrowed under her covers, only her head peeking out, eager to hear more. She listened as Sophie recounted the details, thinking to herself, he's said to be strikingly unattractive, rarely appearing in portraits painted by even the most renowned artists. Is it the influence of power or some great inner appeal that can't be seen from the outside? It's understandable. When I saw someone gardening and trimming a bush into the shape of a swan, my heart skipped a beat. Sophie continued, how could the prince not be popular? Befriend him and you're practically royalty, with a rosy future ahead of you. Plus, he's almost certain to become the crown prince, isn't he? Ellie popped her head up. Oh, it would be a political marriage then? Even if you met him here, it would just be a fleeting connection. Sophie quickly explained, but that's only a hypothetical. Besides, he's not close to any of the female students. It's like yearning for a flower on a cliff face you can't reach. Ellie lay back down on her pillow, smiling. I think I understand. The yearning is stronger when it's unattainable. Come to think of it, I wonder how Damien is doing. My fiancé, Damien, he's a year younger than me, the son of a duke. When he comes of age, formal marriage discussions will begin. I've liked him since we were children and thought of him as my destined partner. I trusted him more than anyone, thinking we'd always be together. Damien was gentle, saying he liked everything I liked. He used to be like that, but he's also the one who cruelly broke my trust. Her thoughts flashed back to a painful night in her past, when she'd gone searching for her fiancé. Damien, where are you going when you're supposed to be hosting the party? As she neared a dark cluster of bushes, she heard soft moans. Up one ah. Ellie's cheeks flushed. I don't think this is where I should be. Before she could fully process the situation, she heard the girl call out her fiancé's name. Damien, the princess is inside. Ellie's normally bright eyes darkened. She was stunned to hear Damien's reply. It's all right. The princess won't mind, because she loves me so much. Ellie felt a chill as she couldn't believe Damien would say such a thing so casually. The princess could never be upset with me, because she loves me so much. So stop worrying needlessly and focus on me. The girl lying beneath Damien let out a small, kittenish sound. Ah, young master, Ellie thought miserably. The nameless flowers are vibrant under the moonlight. The sight of lovers whispering sweet nothings. How beautiful. Just when did it become like this? The image of the lovers whispering sweet nothings was truly beautiful. Just when did it become like this? Ellie couldn't bear it any longer and burst into tears. She bowed her head, lamenting her miserable fate. Why? You know I love you. Ellie suddenly decided to ignore it, reassuring herself. It's just a fling. He's gonna marry me anyway, so it's okay, it's okay. Even if something like this happens, I'll still stay by Damien's side until I leave for school. The image of a cold, blonde-haired young man flickered faintly in her mind. Come to think of it, since arriving here, she hadn't had time to think about Damien. Was that a good thing? Although he has the same blonde hair, the atmosphere is different, so I don't seem to be affected. That hateful and arrogant Imperial. Ellie raised her hand and said loudly to Sophie, Sophie, it's me. There's someone I want to defeat in swordsmanship class. She clenched her hand into a fist, seemingly determined. Ellie smiled and asked Sophie, should I throw sand at his eyes next time? However, there was no reply. Ellie heard the even breathing of her roommate. Sophie, it seems like you're really tired. Sweet dreams. The next morning, Sophie was having breakfast with Ellie. She apologized. I'm sorry, Ellie. I fell asleep while we were talking. Ellie smiled reassuringly. It's okay. It was late anyway. Sophie still felt a little rude. She stammered. I'm sorry anyway. Ellie smiled and continued. Me too. Suddenly, a glass of something splashed down. Immediately afterward, someone yelled, it's Ellie. Someone had unceremoniously splashed water on her. Ellie exclaimed, it's cold. The culprit also exclaimed in surprise. Oh dear, it was Elizabeth. She had made a mistake, but her expression seemed to say she felt no remorse. I am sorry, Ellie. I'm not used to carrying things myself, so I slipped. Ellie narrowed her eyes. She was completely unimpressed with Elizabeth's flimsy excuse. What are you talking about? Anyone can see you did that on purpose. Dealing with that fake apology bit by bit will only make me look ridiculous. I can't win. I'll just endure it. Although Ellie was truly angry, she remained silent and walked away. Seeing this, Elizabeth said sarcastically, oh my, you understand, don't you? If not, then you're in a situation where you can't speak up, right? Looking at those shabby clothes, it seems to be true. It might be because of Octia's financial problems. Be careful what you say. Their unrestrained gossip made Ellie's skin crawl. She had tried to be patient, but they wouldn't let her. This is crazy. I just want to grab these people. Nanny, please give me patience. She was still trying to calm herself down when someone else called her. Hey, Ellie. Sophie worriedly offered Ellie a handkerchief. Are you all right? You must be freezing. Here, use this. Ellie smiled back at Sophie. Thank you, Sophie. Sophie whispered to Ellie, they're always rude, but I didn't expect them to act like that to a princess like you. Ellie felt a surge of frustration. I don't understand. Even though he caused a scene yesterday, I was still polite to him. It's like childish hatred for no reason. Ellie awkwardly wiped the water stain on her shirt. She forced a smile at Sophie. Well, yeah. Then Ellie fell silent, as if she had just thought of something. She looked directly into Sophie's eyes and asked, Sophie, do I look countrified? Her question startled Sophie. And of course, Sophie fumbled with her answer, and oh, you look simple and neat. Oh, right, Ellie, the next class is in the music room, isn't it? Seeing Sophie's flustered expression and her quick change of subject, Ellie couldn't help but overthink. She sighed slightly. I guess I really do look countrified, judging by how skillfully she dodged the question. Ellie lifted her teacup and gently blew on it. She felt a pang of relief. Yes, it's a good thing I have to change clothes anyway, even though I feel bad for the nanny who took such good care of me. The music class arrived quickly. The room was filled with various musical instruments. Ellie used a violin, while Rockin used a large cello. The music emanating from the many instruments blended together, creating a wonderful melody. Rockin seemed to be concentrating on getting the feel of the music. As Ellie played, she thought, but I don't want to put on unnecessary makeup just to go to class. Why should I dress up just for myself? At this point, I understand why he's considered arrogant. Focus, focus. Just as she reminded herself, Ellie played a wrong note, causing her part to fall out of sync. Ellie frowned in annoyance. She felt both angry and worried, afraid that Rockin would have a reason to criticize her. However, Rockin simply looked at her silently, having stopped playing as well. The music teacher clapped his hands and called out to signal all the students, all right, let's take a break. Ellie felt a mess. She sighed heavily and muttered to herself, this isn't easy at all. While she was washing her hands during the break, someone behind her asked, why do you work so hard? Ellie was startled when she turned around and saw Rockin. She was sitting, and he was standing, the difference in height making her slightly uneasy. What? Rockin repeated his question, both during the last swordsmanship class and this one. What's the reason you practice so diligently? Ellie answered seriously, only by giving my all can I avoid regrets. Rockin seemed to not quite understand Ellie's motivation. The position of heir to the kingdom is already yours. Ellie told Rockin, don't say things you don't know. Even if my position is secure, I can't be careless. I want to be a good queen, fully understanding the responsibilities of my position. Rockin suddenly stared at her with wide eyes. His action made Ellie extremely confused. Then Rockin exclaimed, an interesting royal. Ellie was surprised. Interesting? I haven't met many royals, so I don't know how they usually are. Rockin told Ellie, you're like my younger sister. Ellie blushed slightly at his compliment, scratching her head and laughing. Pretty, right? Rockin nonchalantly threw a bucket of cold water on her. Without a shred of mercy, that's a boy. He spoke with his chin held high, full of self-importance. Even with only half my genes, he's still as handsome as I am. Ellie gave a strained smile, replying indifferently, I suppose so. Rockin continued, my younger brother is a lot like you. He's ridiculously diligent and has a strange love for his country. Ellie wasn't sure whether to be happy or offended by this comparison. That's so. Rockin crossed his arms and looked at Ellie with an unusually serious expression, but it's true. Ellie was taken aback by his sudden change in tone. She turned to look at him, surprised. This situation feels so strange, she thought. This uncomfortable and awkward relationship. That was definitely my first impression. But strangely, talking to him now isn't so bad. It's really odd. After her vocal lesson in the music room, Ellie was surprised by a rather interesting invitation. Huh, you want me to be your dance partner? Sophie smiled at Ellie, her eyes full of anticipation. The school's anniversary party is coming up, and if you don't have a partner yet, you can go with me. Ellie asked, what about Frederick, your boyfriend? Sophie's gentle smile remained. Well, since I'm a commoner, I thought it was too early to go public with our relationship, so we've been keeping it a secret. After saying this, Ellie clearly saw Sophie sigh sadly. Ellie thought to herself, they say there's no discrimination, but authority and rules don't seem to matter. Wanting to change the subject to cheer Sophie up, Ellie asked, do you know about the rose and the lily? Sophie quickly replied, I do. They used to represent the male and female students of the academy, right? The anniversary celebration is Squina Academy's important annual event. The highlight of the event is that students become voters and choose their own representatives. The purpose is to introduce Squina's democratic culture to students from other countries. In this place, where the aristocracy is the majority, this event is simply a popularity contest, or, in other words, a ranking. You have to receive an anonymous nomination to become a candidate, and the results are also determined by connections. So it's like there's already a designated winner. Ellie asked, surprised, oh, who's the appointed one? Sophie readily told her a name, Beth. Ellie's world was instantly rocked, her heart crumbling. She unconsciously asked Sophie in a louder voice, Senior Beth? Sophie nodded vigorously. Yes, because she's from the royal family and has notable connections. Ellie's annoyance reached its peak that I have to watch that picky Princess Preen on the stage. She continued to probe Sophie. So, is the Lily Senior rockin'? Sophie responded in a flustered tone. Oh, he doesn't like attracting attention that way. Sophie's cheeks suddenly flushed as she mentioned a certain name that I have to become Frederick Was. Ellie stroked her chin thoughtfully. Is he Senior Sophie's boyfriend? She wondered. The Was family is a powerful one in the Empire. He'll probably end up as the Lily. Even though this is a neutral country, the power dynamic is so biased. No wonder it feels a bit bitter. Ellie quickly took Sophie's hand. All right, Senior Sophie. She said, let's enjoy the party together. Really? Sophie asked. Thank you, Ellie. The two chatted happily, oblivious to Elizabeth eavesdropping on their conversation. A deep, scheming smile suddenly spread across her face. An interesting idea popped in her head, one that would certainly be very beneficial to her. All right, let's try facing this bravely, she thought. The next day at school, Ellie was immediately dragged by Rockin to class to listen to the lecturer teach about the history of Squina Academy. The Pope of the ancient empire in its early days, although he held the power of a ruler, he didn't participate in politics. Ellie covered the book in front of her and pondered, finding it difficult to understand. Was there any change in his mood over the weekend? Didn't he sit next to me? Her back was now damp with sweat. She felt a bit scared of the hostile stares the other female students were giving her. The back of her neck prickled. I shouldn't look back. What's going on? While I'm suffering like this, he's just focused on himself. She glanced at the open book on Rockin's desk. A crudely drawn cat stared back at her. He's just doodling. This man, who is he really? The lecturer's announcement snapped her back to reality. Today's class will end here. After the class, Ellie was completely exhausted, feeling like her soul had left her body. I don't even know how the class ended. She sighed inwardly. Suddenly, Rockin spoke to her. Let's go. Ellie tilted her head innocently and asked, do you mean go together? Rockin, not as naive as her, frowned. Asking the obvious is your hobby, isn't it? Annoyed, Ellie retorted, does someone like Senior have a special talent for hearing every sarcastic remark? Neither willing to back down from the bickering, they fell silent, letting things settle. Rockin, with an amiable smile, spoke first. From now on, I plan to seriously fulfill my role as a senior. So let's go together, shall we? Ellie's whole body jolted. Her mind suddenly felt hazy. Now he's concerned about taking care of me? She thought. Listlessly, she replied, all right. Swordsmanship class hasn't changed much. When all the students were exhausted after intense training, the swordsmanship instructor signaled to them, let's take a break. Ellie quickly lowered her sword, relaxing her stance. She looked towards Rockin, who always kept his distance. He was as neat as ever, just swinging his sword around. Noticing her gaze, he quickly offered, "If you're having trouble, I can help you a bit. Here, there are only opponents with a large weight difference from you, and you prefer the assessment that it should end with a quick attack." Rockin stepped forward and grabbed Ellie's wrist to adjust her sword grip. However, because he was so impatient, it seemed like he was straining her wrist. "You've been enduring it stubbornly until now, haven't you?" But Ellie stubbornly told him, "If I can win, I can endure it." Rockin seriously helped her reflect on herself that IT seems like an extreme hobby. If you want to continue wielding a sword, you should listen. Ellie remained silent, but she actually tried to follow his instructions. "How do I release the tension in my wrist?" Rockin rambled on with a bunch of philosophy in Ellie's ear. Supplying strength isn't everything. Remember the necessary limits. Unless you have a hobby of torturing your body. Ellie looked at him with a bored expression, thinking to herself, no matter what he says, he's always sarcastic. "Sure, relax your wrist." "Oh, this feels much more comfortable." Ellie quickly tried adjusting her hand position, and her strength actually improved somewhat. Ellie stomped her foot on the floor and quickly thrust her sword forward. What happened next surprised her. Ellie quickly turned her head and said to Rockin, "That's fortunate." Rockin looked at her and smiled gently, praising her. "Good job. I'm leaving, so work hard." Ellie quickly replied yes. She thought, turns out he knows how to smile sincerely. After Rockin left, Ellie grasped her sword hand with her other hand. She seemed to be having some daring thought. She asked herself, why am I like this? Ellie was still lost in thought when she suddenly heard someone call her, "Oh, Ellie, you're a little early today." It was Sophie. It seemed she was also waiting for Ellie to appear. That's great. "I baked cookies during class today." Here, Ellie was training hard. Ellie looked up at Sophie, her eyes a little hazy. "Huh?" Sophie covered her mouth in surprise, unconsciously exclaiming, "Your face is all red." Ellie stammered in reply. "It seems the sun was too strong." She touched her head and quickly went over to Sophie. "Are those cookies?" Sophie smiled and held out a small box. "I baked these during elective class, and they're quite good. I also wanted to send a box to His Highness the Prince. Could you deliver it for me?" Ellie didn't refuse Sophie's request out of course. "I'll go right now." Ellie's agreement and the quick action of snatching the gift box made Sophie a little worried. "Huh? You could go tomorrow." Before Sophie could finish, Ellie immediately told her, "Hey, something this delicious should be eaten right away, right?" Sophie rested her hand on her cheek and muttered to herself, "Ellie, you haven't even tasted them yet." Ellie quickly went outside, walking and thinking as she realized her current dilemma, that I forgot to ask where the prince is. How can I find someone I've never met? And why did Sophie ask me to deliver this? Is this an opportunity to become friendly and promote peace between the heirs? No. She suddenly saw someone in the distance ahead. Oh, blonde hair. The prince in the portrait also has blonde hair like that. Ellie felt quite awkward when it wasn't just that person, but there was another boy beside him. Huh, it seems like they're going somewhere. She hesitantly called out, over there. Then suddenly a loud shout of her name startled Ellie. Ellie. She unconsciously spun around reflexively and saw Rockin right behind her. He asked, "Isn't your last class today swordsmanship?" Ellie hesitantly answered his question, that's right, but Rockin suddenly lowered his head, having clearly seen a gift box in her hand. He sniffed it. Rockin's action startled Ellie. She shyly turned around, clutching the box of cookies as Rockin's inquisitive gaze lingered. Cookies? Ellie was still preoccupied with other thoughts and couldn't immediately answer him. Goodness, you scared me, suddenly getting so close. Oh, right, the prince. Her heart sank as the figures of the two from earlier had vanished without a trace. They're gone. She unconsciously sighed sadly, muttering, they disappeared. Rockin tilted his head towards Ellie and asked, "Who are you going to give that to?" Ellie answered him as bluntly as possible. "Why do you need to know?" Rockin continued to ask, "A boy." Ellie replied, "Well, sort of." Rockin boldly asked further, "A boyfriend?" Hearing that question, Ellie couldn't help but laugh. "What? No way. I was going to give it to the great Imperial Prince." Rockin casually took the gift box and asked Ellie, "Really? Did you make it yourself?" His action was very familiar, as if he were the rightful owner of the gift box. Why did he take it so naturally? "Oh, because I'm busy, so he's going to help me deliver it, right?" Ellie quickly replied, "No way. Sophie asked me to deliver it for her. She said she made them during elective class. Maybe I should sign up next term too." "Not bad." Rockin swiftly untied the bow tied around the box. Ellie flinched and whirled around. Ellie yelled at Rockin, even giving his nimble hand a sharp slap. "What are you doing? Why did you open it without permission?" Rockin looked at his slapped hand and exclaimed, "Ouch." Ellie thought to herself, I know you're not considerate, but don't open other people's gifts. Ellie crossed her arms. She was a little annoyed as she frankly exposed Rockin, and it was just a loud sound. I didn't hit you hard. Rockin pathetically asked for her opinion. I can't open it. After the slap, he quickly retied the ribbon. Ellie pointed at him and began to lecture. Of course not. It's rude. Rockin avoided her gaze. Otogia's culture is so different from ours. Anyway, I'm on my way back, so I'll walk you to the dormitory. Ellie quickly agreed with his suggestion. Okay, let's go. The two of them walked, one in front of the other, chatting as they went oh, you know what the Imperial Prince is like. Rockin countered with a question of his own. How should I answer that? Ellie quickly caught up to walk beside him so they could talk more easily. Is it hard to say? I won't tell anyone. Rockin suddenly asked Ellie back, what do you think of him? The abrupt question caught Ellie off guard. Pointing to herself, she asked me, rumor has it I'm quite arrogant, but being royalty, it's understandable. He's quite popular, but personally, he's not my type. I guess he has some kind of charm beyond his looks. This is just personal preference, so don't take it as criticism. Oh, we're here. Well then, seeing Ellie startled, Rockin cleared his throat awkwardly. Why do you have that expression? He quickly composed himself and replied, it's nothing. Ellie, still puzzled, had no choice but to let him go. Okay, see you later then. Rockin waited until Ellie had safely returned to the dormitory before clutching the gift box in his hand and walking down the stairs. Inside the bathroom, steam billowed. Ellie was still showering when she found herself thinking of Rockin, upperclassman Rockin. He must have left already, right? She slipped on her uniform shirt. If I run into him, I won't say anything. She added her jacket, but walking together to every swordsmanship lesson is a bit inconvenient. Going anywhere with him attracts attention. As soon as she reached the dormitory gate, she heard her name called. Ellie. It was Rockin. I've actually been waiting here for you. Finally came out. Ellie suddenly felt a pang of guilt and scratched her head sheepishly. Oh, have you been waiting long? The air between them immediately froze with Rockin's blunt reply, yes. Ellie gritted her teeth. I didn't ask you to wait. Rockin asked, are you heading back to the dormitory? Ellie quickly replied, yes. Afternoon classes were canceled. She thought to herself, he's not exactly forcing me, but it's strangely hard to refuse. Rockin was rarely this considerate. Have you been keeping up with the swordsmanship lessons lately? At this, Ellie's wariness inexplicably melted away. She smiled, thanks to you. Rockin boasted, well, considering you're the princess of a rival nation, I feel like I've been too kind revealing that. Ellie laughed brightly. If war breaks out, I'll be sure to use that against you. The kingdom of Otogia and the Kasucha Empire may be enemies on the surface, but it's been 20 years since the ceasefire, so you can joke like that. Still, as a noble of the empire, getting this close is a bit strange. Ellie asked, so why have you been approaching me lately? Rockin glanced at her. Then he suddenly complimented her directness. That's a pretty straightforward question. What if I said I'm interested in you? Ellie seemed incredulous at Rockin's audacious words. Could you please not say such scary things? Rockin, however, showed no sign of anger or offense. He simply asked gently, scary? Shouldn't it be a privilege? Ellie remained silent, reassuring herself. Statements like this don't surprise me anymore. I think I'm getting used to him. Rockin continued his proposal, a rather good initiative he'd just thought of. If there's a chance, I'd like to introduce you to my younger brother. So, saying he wasn't interested would be a lie. Ellie was startled, and she asked Rockin in a higher-pitched voice, your brother? Is that the half-brother you said resembled me before? Ellie thought to herself, I know that's not the appropriate concern. Are you seriously trying to set me up? Rockin immediately noticed Ellie's worry with just a glance. He said with a smile, don't misunderstand. It's for political relations. Since we're connected by fate anyway, let's build a relationship. You won't lose out either. Ellie lamented inwardly. No, I think I'll lose out quite a bit. My good impression of you is steadily decreasing. What with the envious glances and the things my ears have to endure because of you. Ellie gave a somewhat sarcastic smile. Is that so? However, she then had a different thought. Even though he's a bit difficult to understand, he's not a bad person. It seems he has many connections, so befriending him might not be a bad thing. Rockin crossed his arms and arrogantly asked Ellie, so, who are you going to the Academy's anniversary party with? Ellie answered without any hesitation, with Sophie. What about you? As soon as the question left her mouth, Ellie immediately felt regret. He's so popular, I'm sure many girls want to go with him. I asked a redundant question. However, just a second later, she was startled to hear Rockin's unexpected answer, Frederick Watts. The expression on Ellie's face was clearly bewildered. Huh. Ellie quickly asked Rockin, you're going with Sophie's boyfriend? I thought you were very popular. Rockin informed her, but this is just my own decision. Ellie stroked her chin thoughtfully. I see. Well then, see you tomorrow. In her own dorm room, Sophie was looking at Ellie with worried eyes. She called out to her roommate, Ellie, Seeing the overly simple outfit Ellie was wearing, Sophie asked her, "Are you really going to go like that?" Ellie didn't see any problem with her party attire, and she turned to look at Sophie. "Yes, why?" "No one's going to look," Sophie said, trailing off. She was thinking of a way to persuade Ellie to change her clothes. Sophie sighed and exclaimed, "I don't know what our princess's problem is. Maybe it's the problem of her clumsy hands." Suddenly, in the next second, she was determined to do something to make Ellie change. "All right, maybe not as good as the maids, but I'll do my best." Looking at Sophie's figure looming over her entire body, Ellie's eyes sparkled with confusion. The two finished getting ready and went to the party together. There were already many people there. The bright ceiling lights illuminated the space, and everyone turned their heads toward the entrance. They all gasped at Ellie's beauty. She was wearing a very elegant dress. "Oh my, Ellie," a noble girl exclaimed. "That's so beautiful. That dress really suits you." Ellie smiled back at her. "Thank you. Sophie helped me with it." Sophie stepped forward and hugged Ellie's arm. "See, dressing up makes you feel better, right?" Ellie smiled back at her. "That's right. Sometimes dressing up isn't so bad." Sophie looked at her with sparkling eyes full of admiration. "You look absolutely stunning, Ellie. If I were a man, I would have fallen for you at first sight." Ellie smiled gently, Sophie's words truly warming her heart. "Really? You think so? This party, you can tell every detail has been carefully considered. As expected, this is the first official event of the new semester." Sophie suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her closer. "Ellie, look." Ellie's sharp eyes recognized the object in front of them. "Ah, is that a ballot box?" Sophie quickly replied, "Yes, but..." "Ellie, your name is on there too." Truly, beside the antique ballot box was a voting slip with her name on it. Ellie was startled, thinking, "Why is my name there? I'm not so clueless as to be in that kind of situation." Sophie stealthily observed Ellie's reaction, murmuring, "As expected, it wasn't you." Suddenly, as if a demon had appeared, Elizabeth, still dressed in her usual flamboyant and glamorous style, arrived. She drawled in a high-pitched voice, "Oh my, how very confident. The competition must be fierce, mustn't it?" Ellie quickly understood the animosity in her words. "I see. It must have been bet. Whether I get the rose or not, I don't really care, but it's so annoying to be pranked by that wicked princess. If I were a man, I'd challenge her to a duel right now." Suddenly, music began to play, breaking the tense atmosphere between the two. The school directed the band to play a smooth melody. Sophie looked around in a daze. "Oh dear, it looks like the party has started." Ellie, no longer paying attention to Elizabeth, quickly went to find the food. "Right, things have begun. If I keep sulking, I'll only be hurting myself. This is delicious." Sophie turned around at Ellie's call. "Senior." Sophie unconsciously mimicked Ellie. A sweet piece of cake was popped into her mouth. Ellie secretly felt amused. "Well, the food hasn't done anything wrong, has it?" Sophie asked Ellie in surprise. "Oh my goodness, what kind of cake is this? It's so good." Ellie quickly replied, "I don't know the name, but it's really delicious." The two chatted happily, completely forgetting about the person who wanted to antagonize them from behind. Elizabeth stepped up from behind Ellie. "Hello, Ellie. You two are always together, but I don't see rockin' today." Although Ellie was incredibly irritated, she forced herself to maintain a minimum level of politeness. "Hello, seniors. Actually, I was planning to join my friends." Ellie thought to herself, "Well, I didn't make any promises, but since they came to greet me, I'll respond." Elizabeth probed her, or rather, her motive was to provoke Ellie. "It's quite miraculous that you two are always together, yet nothing has progressed. The way I see it, either you have no charm, or you don't have feelings for him, do you?" Ellie looked at the glasses of wine placed on the table and smiled pleasantly, saying, "Just as I expected." Ellie quickly picked up one of the glasses, seemingly not having considered any other possibilities. "I want to take this opportunity to clarify something. Unlike you, Senior, I'm not here to play games." Ellie left it at that, calmly taking a sip of her wine, leaving Elizabeth in a state of both relief and apprehension. Ellie continued, saying, "Simply put, someone as beautiful as I am is entitled to an inheritance. Meaning, there's no reason to wait for someone else's choice. Perhaps you don't realize that because you've always been the choice." With just that one sentence, Ellie truly infuriated Elizabeth to the point of near explosion. Even the overhead chandelier trembled slightly from Elizabeth's enraged gasp. She gripped her fan tightly, her fury palpable. Elizabeth marched towards Ellie. Ellie thought to herself, "All right, come and face me. You can't touch me anyway." Suddenly, someone shouted, stopping Elizabeth in her tracks. "Stop it." Sophie had positioned herself in front of Ellie, her voice loud and clear. "That's enough. Stop it, Beth." Ellie, both grateful and surprised, called out, "Senior Sophie." But Elizabeth didn't back down in the face of Sophie's intervention. Instead, She continued forward, her demeanor haughty. She glared at the two of them, her words dripping with contempt. You can tell someone's class by the company they keep. Those who wouldn't dare raise their heads elsewhere act all high and mighty in this school. Neutrality is fine, but there's no need to be fair to riffraff. While she continued her tirade, Sophie endured it, unable to retort. Seeing this, Elizabeth laughed, her amusement evident. Let's see, what are you selling today? Pottery? Dresses? Or your body? Elizabeth's words were the final straw. Ellie couldn't hold back any longer and shouted, Beth! Just as Ellie was about to lunge forward, someone grabbed her arm, their voice laced with disdain. Hey, princess, don't waste your energy. But before he could react further, Ellie had seized his wrist, throwing him to the ground as she yelled, Get off! Ellie pinned him down, her voice hard. What? How much? While he struggled to break free, Ellie twisted his hand, the one that had dared to touch her, making him cry out in pain. Ellie's voice remained, I see why. It was Senior Beth, wasn't it? Witnessing this scene, Elizabeth stammered, fear creeping in her voice. But Ellie's cold tone persisted. You used my name to sign up. Exposed, Elizabeth's fear intensified. Ellie continued, her voice calm. Did you think I was silent because I was afraid? Elizabeth blurted out, what? Ellie didn't bother arguing, stating bluntly, Today is your final warning. If you have so much time to spare, focus on me. Don't involve the people around me in your despicable games. Murmurs rippled through the surrounding crowd. Elizabeth's earlier insults echoed in her mind. That vicious girl, now causing a scene to attract attention and make herself out to be the victim. Seeing Elizabeth's silence, Ellie spoke again. It seems you haven't understood. Do I need to be clearer? If you say those things to Senior Sophie again. Just then, Elizabeth suddenly shouted angrily, Then what? What can someone like you even do? Seeing Elizabeth's outburst, Ellie could only think in exasperation. Why is she like this? She's self-destructing in front of everyone. Him. But finally, Ellie decided to respond with a completely innocent smile. If you really want to know, then keep going. Since you've already started, let's see the final result. Meanwhile, the guy pinned beneath Ellie's foot was trembling and calling out, let me go. Just then, a familiar voice rang out. Ellie. Sensing the approaching footsteps, Ellie thought with a bit of worry. This voice is, why now? If the Empire Senior is on Princess Beth of the Allied Kingdom's side, what should I do? Just as she thought this, Rockin walked up beside her and called out, Let that weakling go. Hearing this, Ellie stammered, Let him go? Just as I expected. But Rockin's next words left her stunned. You have to let go so you can hold my hand. Hearing Rockin say that, Ellie asked in surprise, What? Seeing this, Rockin reiterated, We agreed to meet at the party. Didn't we say we'd go together? At this point, Ellie released the other guy. She gently took Rockin's hand and stammered in reply, Right, I forgot. Rockin feigned disappointment, saying, That's really sad. Then he changed the subject, saying, Your name is on the vase used for voting. Hearing this, Ellie responded shyly, You saw it. Rockin, without any reservation, said directly, I know you crave power, but I didn't expect you to aim for the position of student council president. Hearing this, the surrounding crowd started gossiping again. People say human greed is endless, and if it's royalty, it's definitely even more so. This made Ellie feel extremely uncomfortable. Seizing the opportunity, Elizabeth deliberately added a few provocative words. Even if she's the princess of a small border country, a princess is still a princess. But as soon as she finished speaking, Rockin shot her a cold glare. His voice was filled with a chilling aura as he warned, Elizabeth Maki, stop right there. These words truly made Elizabeth start to feel uneasy, and she consciously shut her mouth. Knowing her place, she bowed and said, I apologize. Then, I'll excuse myself. Seeing this, Ellie was incredibly surprised, thinking, what's with that cruel person? She doesn't listen to me, but she obediently listens to Senior Rockin. Is this the power of love? At this moment, Rockin suddenly spoke up. As expected, you didn't register yourself as a candidate to receive the roses. Seeing this, Ellie coldly turned and said, What? Is it even important to care about that now? What can be done now that it's already happened? Even if I say Beth did it, nothing will change. Suddenly, a suspicion arose in Ellie's heart. Senior Rockin, could it be that he intentionally sided with me to get the attention of the Imperial Prince? Rockin's voice brought her back to reality. But did you forget something? Hearing this, Ellie suddenly remembered. Oh right, Senior Sophie. So Rockin stepped forward and said to Sophie, Your face was so pale, I thought you might collapse right there in the match. So I called Frederick. Sophie politely replied, Thank you. Remembering how Sophie had bravely stood up to protect her, Ellie was deeply moved. Senior Sophie, you stepped forward with such a slender frame. It was so touching. At this moment, Rockin said, Just as Frederick arrives, I'll introduce you to my friends. Say hello to them. This is my direct junior, Ellie. And these are my classmates. This is Frederick and Nigel. Following Rockin's introduction, Frederick bowed in greeting, while Nigel only glanced at her. Seeing this, Ellie politely greeted them. I'm Ellie. It's a pleasure to meet you. Frederick enthusiastically replied. Frederick of the Watts Dukedom, the pleasure is all mine. Looking at the friendly man in front of her, Ellie thought to herself, so this is Senior Sophie's boyfriend, Nigel. Even Frederick sensed her apprehensive gaze and called out, Nigel. Finding himself addressed, Nigel responded coldly. As the introduction already ended, Nigel's tone towards Frederick, with Ellie beside him, was as arrogant as usual. As I said, it's already over. Hearing this, Frederick chuckled, trying to salvage the situation. Nigel, you should introduce yourself too. Seeing his friend like this, Nigel disdainfully gave a brief, reluctant introduction. Nigel Travis, second son of the Davies Dukedom. Hearing these words and the attitude of the person before her, Ellie gave a wry smile, but responded politely. What? Why so curt? Ellie Waiter Octizia, Princess of Octizia. The two then stared at each other, sharing the same thought. We're friends, but we're so different. Just then, a girl called out her name, Ellie. The owner of that voice, Sophie, was walking towards them with a bright smile. Seeing her, Ellie couldn't help but ask, Oh, Senior Sophie, where have you been? She replied with a smile, I was resting in the lounge for a bit. Frederick then stepped forward and embraced his girlfriend, asking with concern, Are you feeling better now? Without waiting for her reply, he gently and tenderly made a suggestion. I respect your decision not to be my partner, but from now on, let's walk together. Sophie hesitated visibly at this proposal. About that. This scene caught Nigel's attention, and he remained silent. He then narrowed his eyes, looking at the two with malice. Under his intense gaze, Sophie became noticeably embarrassed. This behavior caught Ellie's attention, and she quickly put two and two together. Now that I think about it, Senior Sophie refused to be Senior Frederick's partner because of this guy. She then looked at the jealous Nigel beside her. I thought it was just the princess of the enemy nation they couldn't stand, but it turns out they also dislike commoners. After pondering for a moment, Ellie made up her mind. Excuse me, but I can't do as you wish today. Suiting action to thought, Ellie smiled brightly and took Rockin's arm beside her, suggesting cheerfully, Oh my, this is perfect. I have something important to discuss with my senior. Could you swap partners with me for a bit? This request left Frederick and Sophie a little puzzled, but they didn't object. No problem. But Ellie quickly pushed Sophie and Frederick together before they could react. Wow, thanks. You two should go now. Are we supposed to go now? Watching the two finally leave, Ellie couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. As they nearly disappeared from sight, she called out cheerfully, See you later. Contrary to Ellie, Nigel on the other side was so angry that his veins were bulging. Finally, he turned around and stomped off in a huff. Nigel's abrupt departure left Ellie rather dissatisfied. What's with leaving without even a goodbye? Seriously. After that conversation ended, Ellie and Rockin returned to the banquet hall. As they walked, he asked, So, what was that important thing you wanted to tell me? Ellie, caught off guard by the question, responded quickly, What? Oh, that was just an excuse, of course, to get those two together. Rockin couldn't help but wonder aloud, Are you telling me I was used? Ellie flinched at his words, realizing how that sounded. If anyone overheard, it would definitely be misunderstood. Rockin dropped the subject and moved on that it's almost time for the rose vote. I thought you had something you wanted to talk to me about privately. As soon as he finished, Ellie, a mischievous grin spreading across her face, asked, Oh really? If you're asking, could you maybe give me a sympathy vote? Rockin, observing her playful demeanor, teased her back, Should I? His response caught her off guard. Just then, the king appeared under the lights, a gold-plated goblet in his hand. He tapped the side of the glass a few times with a spoon. Having captured everyone's attention, he announced, Now, for the 19th time, the voting for the rose and lily will begin. The voting commenced, and everyone held a flower in their hand. The first to approach the vases is Beth, confident in her victory. I thought I wouldn't care about the results of the vote, but I was wrong. And now, I have to publicly experience the taste of defeat. It's not fun at all. Thinking about this, Ellie, holding her rose, felt a pang of anxiety. Anyway, with my rose and Senior Sophie's along with my friends, I should have around 6 or 7. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, Rockin approached Ellie. He didn't wait for her to respond before continuing. I haven't been a very good senior. Rockin paused, holding up his flower. With this, I hope to make up for it a little. He then turned and walked forward, heading towards the vases. With his bright red attire, everyone's eyes were on him. He placed the lily in Frederick's vase. As for the rose in his hand, After a moment of consideration, Rockin decided to place it in Ellie's vase. This action caused a ripple of murmurs and whispers throughout the party. Ellie, the recipient of the vote, was completely dumbfounded. Did he vote for me because we've gotten closer? I'm grateful, but to choose me over the princess of an allied nation? What if the prince gets upset? Still, I should thank him, right? Thinking this, she hesitantly started forward. Rockin, about to leave, was stopped by Frederick. Rockin, wait a moment. He then suggested cryptically, let's talk. Out on the balcony, Rockin asked directly, what did you want to talk about? Frederick took a deep breath, gathering his courage before speaking. Your Highness. Few. After a moment of contemplation, he asked a short, pointed question. Ellie. Are you interested in the princess of our allied nation? Enemies? As soon as the question left his lips, Rockin lowered his head and let out a mocking chuckle. Now, what do you mean? He then looked at Frederick, his expression turning serious, his voice deepening noticeably. Are you speaking from the position of a loyal subject? This question successfully made the other person choke, but he quickly added a response, successfully salvaging the situation, speaking from the worry of a friend. Faced with these words, Rockin calmly offered comfort. What you're worried about won't happen, Frederick. I only intend to build a relationship and introduce her to Rahan for the sake of peace between our two nations. Fearing Frederick wouldn't understand, he calmly explained, this meaningless ceasefire has dragged on for 20 years. It's time to let go. At this point, Frederick didn't ask any further questions and accepted the explanation. All right, I understand. But he still hesitated, bringing up the previous issue. But you don't necessarily have to give your vote to Princess Ellie. Following this, he offered a perfect excuse. She's the most suitable for the position, that's all. Frederick, exasperated, brought up countless scenarios. You know the significance of your vote. What are you going to do if people misunderstand this? Rockin maintained his calm demeanor. There's no need to look at everything from a political perspective. This is just a school matter. At this, Frederick finally couldn't hold back and yelled, you must always think about Rockin's position. Not letting him say anything more, Rockin cut him off. Frederick. Rockin turned his head, his eyes emotionless, and asked a critical question. Do you think my position will be shaken by such trivial matters? Not receiving the answer he wanted, and instead being countered, Frederick quickly had to agree with Rockin's opinion, but still stubbornly tried to persuade him. Of course, this won't shake your position, Rockin. Not waiting for Frederick to finish, Rockin ignored him, walking right past him. If we're done talking, I'll be going. This happened so quickly, so unexpectedly, that Frederick couldn't react. The door then opened. Before leaving completely, Rockin offered a kind reminder. Calm down before you come in. Only after Rockin had left could Frederick regain his composure, hesitantly looking at the closed door with a mixture of expectation and worry. I also hope that what I'm worried about is unfounded and baseless. Inside the banquet hall, Ellie was dancing hand in hand with some noblemen. Even though she was dancing with him, her attention was elsewhere. Looking at the elegantly dressed nobles standing in the distance, she started to wonder, the influence of Senior Rockin in this school? She continued to ponder. Rockin's vase was filled with roses at some point. Not stopping there, Ellie continued to wonder. Even students from the Empire and neutral countries voted for me. Even if Senior's family is influential, could it really be like this? Anyway, even if the international situation is important, this is a school, so finishing the dance, Ellie lifted her skirt and curtsied slightly while still lost in thought. This simple action alone made her partner blush. Maybe I received votes thanks to Senior Rockin's popularity. Everyone can see how cool he is. Having just seen one person off, another hand was extended to her. Ellie, the boy, looking at the beautiful girl before him, stuttered nervously. Why, you look very beautiful today. If you're free, would you like to dance with me? Before the invitation, Ellie smiled brightly, intending to accept, right? She didn't notice Rockin appearing behind her with a frosty expression. Oh, seeing who it was, the other boy became nervous and quickly darted away without a second thought. So you already have a partner then. I'll excuse myself. The incident happened so quickly and unexpectedly that Ellie couldn't process it. What was that? Rockin remained completely calm. Ellie subsequently disregarded the incident, pouting and turning to leave, but bumped straight into Rockin. Ellie only then realized Rockin's presence. Oh, when did you get here? Contrary to his previous icy demeanor, Rockin now smiled brightly. Just now, immediately after, melodious music began to play again. Hearing the gentle classical music, Ellie suddenly had an idea. She then leaned slightly towards him, smiling sheepishly. Well, it can't be helped. Unconventionally, Ellie smiled brightly and extended her hand to Rockin. Would you like to dance with me? Looking at her outstretched hand, he remained silent. Seeing no reaction from Rockin, Ellie suddenly felt embarrassed and quickly turned to leave. If you don't want to, then forget it. However, before she could take more than a few steps, Rockin embraced Ellie's waist, stopping her. Holding her hand in one of his and her waist in the other, Rockin looked at her bewildered expression and asked gently, "Don't want to?" "My pleasure, princess." Snapping back to reality, Ellie quickly asked in bewilderment, "What was that about?" "That made me unhappy." Rockin then smirked and leaned down, whispering in Ellie's ear, "You were the one who suggested it." He then didn't give her a chance to escape, directly taking her other hand. Well, a few seconds later, the two of them were moving to the music. Rockin asked playfully, "Do you still want to give up now?" Ellie didn't answer, instead focusing on swaying to the gentle melody. Watching her feet move gracefully to the rhythm, a strange light flickered in Ellie's eyes. "When I was dancing with someone else earlier, I just felt happy. Why am I trembling now?" After a moment of supporting Ellie as she leaned back, Rockin casually added another question. "How many people have you danced with so far?" Ellie, still dancing, answered truthfully 3. Hearing that number, Rockin seemed somewhat displeased. "They're quite quick, aren't they?" To prevent the conversation from reaching a dead end, she quickly asked a similar question. "What about you?" Rockin didn't hesitate to answer honestly that you're the only one who's asked me to dance. This answer successfully caught Ellie off guard. Really? A few more minutes passed, and the king appeared with the results in hand. As the voting has concluded, I will now announce the results for the Lily and Rose representatives. Hearing this, the people below applauded in response. The king continued, "Those whose names are called, please come up to the stage." The scroll was unfurled, and the king read a name. Representing the Lily group, Frederick was. Hearing his name called, Frederick couldn't hide his pride. As he slowly walked onto the platform, the king continued the announcement. "Next is the following announcement." Pausing for a moment, he announced a name. Representing the Rose group, Ellie Waiter Octasia. Hearing her name called, she was astonished. "Okay," but she quickly regained her composure and instructed Rockin, "I'll be right back." He readily agreed. "All right." Standing on the raised platform, bathed in light, Frederick began his speech. As a senior, a junior, and a fellow student, I promise to dedicate myself to be worthy of the 19th Lily. I would like to thank the headmaster and everyone present here, and I would like to share this joy with my beloved. These words made Sophie, standing below, deeply moved. The headmaster then announced, "The next speech will be from the 19th Rose." Being called upon, Ellie was flustered. I have absolutely no idea what to say." Seeing this, Frederick smiled reassuringly and, "Oh, no, it's not difficult. Just say what you want to say." Encouraged, Ellie gained a bit of confidence and stepped forward. "First of all, I would like to thank everyone present." Pausing for a moment, she added, "This is truly an unexpected result. However, I promise that I, Ellie, as the Rose, will dedicate myself to bringing honor to the school. I hope everyone will see that their decision was correct, and next year." Hearing these words, those below erupted in applause, with Rockin leading the way. The headmaster then snapped his fingers. "Now, everyone, please welcome our two representatives with a round of warm applause." Ellie then took Frederick's arm and descended. "Thank you, everyone." Hearing those words, everyone began to murmur amongst themselves. Ellie, even though she's a princess, is still very friendly, isn't she? That's right, not arrogant like someone. Every word displeased Elizabeth, who turned and walked away. Hearing what everyone was saying about her, Ellie smiled brighter than ever. "The people who were gossiping about me before, I never thought I'd receive support from them. Not bad at all." After following her outside, Rockin finally spoke up and asked, "The star of the party is all alone in a place like this?" Ellie turned around in surprise, asking, "How did you find me?" Rockin joked, "My eyes are very sharp." Ellie was bewildered by his response. "You say that like it's not strange." Seeing this, Rockin stopped teasing her and said, "Well, who chose this place anyway?" But then he softened his voice and gently replied, "Just kidding. Sophie asked me to look after you. Can you tell me why you're here?" Ellie continued walking, then confided in him. Suddenly becoming the center of attention at the party is a bit tiring. Being surrounded by the same people who were talking behind my back not long ago. I don't hate it, but there are so many thoughts in my head. Rockin empathized with her, placing a hand on Ellie's shoulder and murmuring, "Power is like that. Despite being surrounded by people, paradoxically, I'm lonely." Ellie listened attentively to his confession, thinking to herself, "Senior Rockin, he seems lonely." However, she still wanted to maintain a certain distance from Rockin, thinking, anyway, what if him helping me gets misinterpreted as me complaining? So Ellie said, "But anyway, Thank you. You helped me avoid further damage to my image after the commotion earlier, right? Us my senior. Rockin paused, thinking for a moment, not just for that reason, not out of sudden pity, but because you're the most suitable person for the position. Ellie saw him fall silent and asked curiously, why aren't you answering? Ellie suddenly became thoughtful, then asked worriedly, don't tell me you expect something from me. Without waiting for his reply, Ellie continued, a give-and-take kind of thing? I don't have any money. Things are very expensive here. Rockin, seeing she was getting the wrong idea, quickly said, I wasn't thinking of asking for that. I'm not so hard up that I'd ask a princess for money, but keep that in mind anyway. Ellie suddenly interrupted him, asking, but, Senior, just how big is your family? She smiled playfully, adding, hearing you talk, I thought you were the prince of some empire. In reality, Ellie still didn't know that Rockin was the crown prince, the heir to the Kasucha Empire. Rockin thought to himself, that's me. I doubt anyone in this school doesn't know that. So, feeling strange, he asked Ellie, have you met the prince? She answered honestly, no, not yet. Rockin continued to ask, why haven't you met him when the prince is also at this school? Ellie replied, perhaps we're not fated to meet. Besides, they're the royal family of a hostile nation. It's probably better if we don't know each other. Rockin asked further, do you know what he looks like? Ellie cheerfully and enthusiastically replied, of course. I've seen his portrait, she added. The court painter painted it hundreds of times. Suddenly, Rockin recalled past events and realized something. Right, there's something strange. I didn't know I was that prince. Trying to suppress his laughter, Rockin turned to Ellie and said, if you have the chance, let me see that portrait. Hearing this odd request, Ellie asked blankly why. Rockin lied. I'm curious to see how skilled the Ortega court painter is. But Ellie, unaware of the truth, innocently replied, indeed, Mateo's work is truly exquisite and beautiful. Prepare to be amazed. Rockin followed behind her, keeping watch, while thinking about their conversation. Even though I'm using an alias at school, how did they paint that portrait without anyone realizing it's me? Is it because communication between the Empire and Ortega has been cut off? He stood still, watching Ellie play by the fountain. A sense of amusement arose within him. Rockin thought, this situation is quite interesting, so I'll just wait and see for now. After the party ended, Ellie was on her way back when she heard someone call out, Ellie. Sophie rushed over and asked, you were here already? Ellie replied, yes. Did you have a good date? Sophie, a little shy, answered, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting anything, but it's all thanks to you. Suddenly, Sophie teared up, touched, and said, I'm always receiving help from you. I'm so sorry. Ellie smiled brightly and waved her hand dismissively, saying, it's okay. If you're happy, then I'm happy too. But Sophie continued, her voice still thick with emotion. I'm worried that because of me, you couldn't properly enjoy the party. Ellie's face lit up with genuine joy. She smiled at Sophie and said, not at all. I enjoyed it far more than I expected. Ellie recalled the moment she danced with Rockin earlier, thinking to herself, before, whenever I met people, I felt uncomfortable. I've danced with Rockin many times at Ortega, but this feels completely different. Ellie thought deeply, her face flushing that he smells really nice. No, stop thinking about that. But I wonder if Damien is doing well. I haven't thought about him much lately. Scene change. Ellie and a friend are sitting on a break on the school grounds. The short-haired girl sighs to Ellie. There's only a week left until the exam, and there's still so much homework to do. It seems like the professors think we're only taking their classes. Ellie cheerfully replies, exactly. There's so much homework piling up. Her friend continues, Ellie, you seem to have been pretty busy since being selected for the Rose Group, huh? As they chat animatedly, a voice calls from behind Ellie. It's Rockin. He walks towards her, saying, I've been looking for you for a while. So you were here. Seeing him, Ellie breaks into a spontaneous bright smile. Ellie suddenly realizes this and thinks in a panic. Why am I smiling so goofily all of a sudden? Then she controls her emotions and simply waves to him. Just a casual greeting, just a hello. Seeing this, her friend slips away. Ellie, I have class, so I'm going now. Ellie is surprised, but bids her friend farewell. So suddenly? See you later. When they are alone, Rockin says to her, let's go. Ellie asks curiously, go where? Rockin explains, to see the headmaster. He asked you to come along too. Ellie continues to ask, why did he call for us? Rockin replies, you'll find out when we get there. Then he extends his hand as if to help her down and says, let's go. Looking at his gesture, Ellie thinks to herself, he's such a gentleman. But unexpectedly, Ellie jumps down without taking his hand, leaving Rockin lost in thought. At this moment, my outstretched hand was rejected. With her hair flowing in the wind, the princess, as if accustomed to being alone, jumped down naturally. It caught everyone's attention. Ellie says softly to him, you don't need to help me. let's go. Rockin isn't offended by her action. On the contrary, he feels a bit amused. He replies, all right, walking next to him towards the headmaster's office. Ellie can't help but drift into random thoughts that, oh, that wonderful scent I smelled at the party. How can even his body scent be so alluring? Is he trying to charm everyone? Suddenly, Rockin speaks. Oh, Ellie, do you have some time this weekend? Hearing his question, Ellie is startled, as if she can't believe her ears. She asks back in confusion, time? Are you talking to me? Rockin jokingly teases her. Well, am I talking to that pigeon over there? Ellie turns her head and asks him, are you asking me out on a date now? Her words make him want to tease her even more. Rockin leans closer and softly says, do you want it to be a date? Ellie, embarrassed, jumps back and stammers. You're the one who brought it up? Rockin explains, in a string instrument class. Ellie still doesn't understand and asks what. He continued, the class assignment is to write an essay about a performance. So let's go together. Ellie, realizing she'd been tricked, quickly replied, oh, embarrassed. She thought to herself, right, it wasn't a date invitation. Nothing to be disappointed about. I can't believe I got so flustered just from making eye contact. I'm such an idiot. Then she said to him, can you stop teasing me now? Rockin didn't seem to be listening. He replied, really? They finally arrived at the headmaster's office. The headmaster cheerfully praised them both. Thanks to you two, I'm certain that my choice at the party was the right one. The ranking between the two of you was due to my stubborn decision. Ellie replied awkwardly, yes. He continued rambling. Communication is truly important, as is the relationship between the two kingdoms. Without dialogue, peace cannot last, but thanks to this incident, we've taken a step forward. As she listened, Ellie thought, he thinks that coming from a neutral and peaceful nation makes things easy. But it's not an issue that can be resolved simply by a close relationship between predecessors and successors. Suddenly, the headmaster changed the subject to something seemingly unrelated. Have you ever taken a good look inside this headmaster's office? He pointed to each item in the room and explained in detail, these furnishings were brought from the Empire and allied nations, and handicrafts from the kingdom are everywhere. These are my precious possessions, placed here in the hope that the nations will harmonize with each other. Rockin replied coldly, I know. Ellie also thought to herself, he already knows. The headmaster finally concluded the conversation that I thought so too. I spoke at length because I thought my lifelong wish would come true. Let's end our conversation here. Be careful on your way back. Rockin, his face expressionless, replied, I know. Ellie politely said goodbye. I'll see you next time. On their way back, Ellie spoke to him about the conversation. IT seems like the headmaster has high hopes for us, right? Rockin replied, yes, it seems that way. Then Ellie suddenly changed the subject, bringing up Rockin's earlier suggestion. Speaking of which, I'll arrange the schedule to see the performance we talked about earlier. Rockin asked her, slightly puzzled, I was the one who suggested it. So why do you want to arrange the schedule? Ellie winked playfully and told Rockin, even though the headmaster has expectations, I still owe you a favor from the party. I can't live with unpaid debts. Rockin teased her again. Are you sure about your taste? But Ellie was extremely confident. She immediately replied, trust me this time. This junior will take care of tomorrow's schedule. Rockin seemed to enjoy teasing Ellie, so he continued, should I completely trust the princess of the enemy nation? Ellie, competitive, retorted, great senior Rockin, I didn't think you were so weak as to be wary of a princess. Finally, Ellie made plans with him. Then I'll pick you up around 6 p.m. tomorrow. Rockin asked in surprise, you'll pick me up? Ellie replied, yes, so please dress nicely and come out. Although Ellie was only joking, Rockin took her words to heart. He thought nicely. Back in his room, Rockin flung open his wardrobe. He stood there, picking through the clothes. His clothes were scattered haphazardly all over the floor. His roommate noticed and asked, Senior, are you being particularly picky about your outfit today? Rockin, while changing, replied irritably, huh? Me? This caused his roommate to fall silent for a moment. Then he spoke again, then why are all your clothes? But Rockin coldly interrupted for laundry. His roommate, defeated, thought to himself, I feel like I shouldn't ask anything more. So he simply replied, oh, I see, and decided to go back to his studies that he's going out soon anyway, so I'll focus better from now on. Suddenly, Rockin held out 2 glossy tickets to him. His roommate asked, puzzled, what are these? Rockin simply replied, tickets to the Meyer Opera House. This led his roommate to misunderstand, and he asked, confused, are you inviting me to go with you now? Rockin scowled and snapped, are you crazy? Realizing his mistake, the roommate asked, then why are you giving these to me? But in his heart, he still felt a little indignant. Humph, I have a girlfriend too, you know. Rockin simply answered, I don't need them anymore. Hearing this, His roommate's eyes widened. He thought to himself, putting aside how expensive they are, these tickets are incredibly hard to come by. Then Rockin coldly continued, if you have time, go. If not, throw them away. His roommate, unsure how to respond, simply said, thanks. Eli, ready early, stood waiting for Rockin at the bottom of the building, thinking to herself, am I out here too early? This is the first time I've waited for a guy, so I'm so nervous. Just then, Rockin walked out. Hearing footsteps, Eli quickly turned to look. Upperclassman Rockin. Rockin, who had even styled his hair today, saw that she was already there and said, you're early. Eli immediately noticed the difference in Rockin today and exclaimed, wow, you look really special today. You look so radiant and handsome. Rockin replied to her compliment. Being called handsome is strange. Eli continued, really? Dressed like this, you look like a different person. I thought you didn't own any light-colored clothes since you always wear dark ones to parties. Rockin honestly replied, I just wear whatever I grab first. Because his answer had so many holes in it, Eli's next question stunned him. So, did you grab this bright outfit first today? Rockin ignored her question and changed the subject. Where's the carriage? Eli turned and replied, carriages aren't allowed where we're going. She skipped ahead as she spoke. It's my first time going there, so it'll be a new experience, but be careful not to get lost because you're too excited. You're not planning on going to that dangerous place, are you? Rockin asked, frowning. Eli, unconcerned, cheerfully replied, playfully punching his arm, what if I am? Out of everyone I know, you're the strongest. Rockin couldn't say anything more. Eli looked at Rockin with sparkling eyes. Just look straight at me. I believe you'll protect me. What do you think? Hearing this, Rockin looked down and replied, all right, trust me. Eli was captivated by his smile, and even now, occasionally when he smiled like that, for some reason, he also seemed incredibly adorable. Eli snapped out of it, quickly dismissing the thought. Good heavens, how could a narcissist from the enemy side look adorable? Eli feigned a look of disgust. I've reached my limit, truly gone too far. The two of them finally reached their destination. Rockin glanced around and asked her this building. Eli nodded, yes, right here. She stood behind him, observing him as she thought to herself, Senior, is it because he grew up in a good environment that he doesn't like this place? Rockin wore an impassive expression. Seeing him scratch his head awkwardly, Eli, also noticing this, became flustered and blamed herself. Was I too hasty? Rockin's coat suddenly billowed. In the wind, he took off his coat and draped it over his shoulder, seemingly more comfortable now. He glanced at Eli, smiled, and asked, what are you waiting for? Let's go inside. Eli cheerfully replied, pointing towards the food stall excitedly. They sell snacks there too. Let's buy some. Prince Rockin indulged Eli, buying a full bag of popcorn. Finally, the two happily looked at each other. Good business, they said, bidding farewell to the vendor. The two entered the theater. Rockin looked around and asked for her opinion first. Where should we sit? Eli quickly replied, you can sit wherever you like. Finally, they chose a pretty ideal spot. Eli sat down first and told him, actually, a senior from school brought me here a few times. Eli was still very enthusiastic about the place, her eyes sparkling as she looked around. She shared her feelings with Rockin. The first time I came here, I was so surprised. It was so interesting that I wanted to come back again. Is that so? Rockin listened attentively and nodded along. The more Eli shared, the more excited she became for the show to start soon. Although the performances at the theater are also good, the stage here is truly captivating. Eli almost emphasized, so it will be a new experience. The theater lights began to dim. Eli exclaimed excitedly, it's starting. Below the stage, the show began with a dramatic fire dance, a leopard leaping through rings of fire. Pretty amazing, right? Eli's eyes crinkled with a smile. The surrounding people buzzed with excitement, some even standing up. Rockin instinctively moved closer to her, which Eli noticed. She gently shifted to the other side of the seat a little and called Rockin over. Crowded? Move over here a bit. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Well then, Rockin gently moved closer, his hand restlessly reaching out and lightly touching hers. Sorry, I was being a bit forward. The two sat close together. If anyone else saw them, they would surely think they were a couple. Eli felt the presence of the opposite sex, so close to her, her cheeks flushing. She could no longer focus on what was happening on stage. Her face grew redder and redder, like a ripe tomato. Suddenly, Rockin called her name, Eli. Startled, she turned, huh? The MC's announcement echoed from the stage. Act 1 has concluded. It's now intermission time. Here's the next act. Eli realized she had missed the entire middle portion. A hand offered popcorn in front of Eli. She looked at the person beside her in surprise. What is it? What are you doing? Eli stammered. Rakan calmly explained, you bought it, but you haven't eaten any. Eli, embarrassed, brushed his hand away. I'll grab some myself. Rakan nodded in agreement. All right. Eli took a piece and brought it to her mouth. The taste was still wonderful. This time, she took a handful of popcorn. Then she happily enjoyed the popcorn while watching the play below. But only now did Eli realize that he had been tilting the bag towards her this whole time. Eli's thoughts wandered again. Is it because I'm his junior that he's taking care of me like this? I'm a little touched. The popcorn bag was almost empty, with only a few pieces left. Eli, realizing this, was mortified. She wished the earth would swallow her whole. I'll eat it with gusto. Rakan smiled, gently folding the B-A-G. It was delicious. Eli cringed, thinking back to what just happened. I ate too fast. Rakan, concerned for her empty stomach, said, if you were hungry before coming here, you should have said something. I would have bought more. Eli quickly refused, waving her hands. No need. She muttered under her breath. Touched? Just wait. Below, the legendary play of Juliet and Romeo unfolded. The characters had just shared a passionate kiss. Suddenly, another man appeared to interrupt. Juliet, that man is a fake. Oh my, I couldn't bear to watch that kiss. The kiss just now, I couldn't bring myself to watch the whole thing. Below, the play reached its climax and oh, that man is the fake. Both of you claim to be Romeo. My beloved has a large birthmark on his buttock. Juliet proposed a solution, so both of you prove yourselves before me and the villagers. The characters' lines were enough to make Rakan think. About birthmarks that IT can't be. Why didn't you recognize me? Below, the two characters were intensely focused on playing their roles in the argument. That IT seems like you're not confident because you're an imposter. Rakan glanced at Eli, who was laughing heartily at the play. Although a bit crude, it's quite captivating. Even though Rakan didn't seem to enjoy it much, he thought, occasionally, things like this aren't bad. The play ended, and Eli and Rakan left the theater. She was still immersed in the performance. I can't believe the birthmark turned out to be a fake tattoo. Eli, still enthusiastic, recounted the play to Rakan, sharing more of her thoughts. That foolish sorcerer, thinking the birthmark was real, even pulled down his pants in front of everyone. Indeed, Rakan indulged her, seeing how happy she was. The unique aspect was how the actors treated the audience as characters within the play, making it easier for them to immerse themselves. Also, reducing the number of actors created more space, and the cost-cutting demonstrated the playwright's brilliance. Eli felt a headache coming on. She just wanted to focus on the play's content. Are we in homework mode already? Indeed, Rakan admitted, I came to see it for my homework. Eli sighed, who doesn't know that? Still cheerful, she turned to ask Rakan's opinion. Senior, what did you think of today? Rakan smiled in response. Just as you said, it was truly a new experience. Eli, embarrassed, couldn't look him in the eye, and, thank you for earlier, but you didn't have to do that. Rakan furrowed his brow, not understanding her. What do you mean? You held my snack box for a long time. Your hand must have gotten tired. Eli mumbled, flustered. Well, it's just it finished quickly, so it was okay. Eli froze. Her face burned even brighter. Well, that's good then. But inside, the warm feeling was gone. I completely forgot this guy's true nature. Rakan smiled, just kidding. If you're comfortable, then you're fine. This is a big deal. My heart is fluttering, even though those words were just teasing. I don't know when I started caring about this person more than Damien. Just teasing a junior who's easy to pick on. Nothing more, nothing less. Ellie thought as she quickened her pace. She shyly reminded him, it's late, let's hurry up. Her heart was uneasy. Yes, it's better to be safe than sorry. Before my feelings get any deeper, I have to stop here. It's a good thing exams are coming up, so I won't have to see him. Ellie told herself, this is my chance. Stopping in front of her door, Ellie turned around and said, you've worked hard today. Rakan politely replied, you too. Then, suddenly remembering something, Rakan asked, but didn't you say you were going to the performance with a senior? Ellie honestly answered yes. Rakan asked with a hint of worry, which senior? Ellie replied, Sufi, do you know her? She's my roommate. Hearing this, Rakan seemed relieved. He nodded, Sufi. Ellie was curious why Rakan had asked, but he simply said, I wanted to thank you for telling me about such a great place. Ellie laughed politely, great, but you had to squeeze into a cramped seat. Anyway, I'll pass on your thanks. Rakan suddenly said, let's have dinner together next time. Ellie tried to decline. exams are coming up soon. Rockin responded casually, as if it were nothing, so Ellie wanted to retort, but kept it to herself. So, I have to study for exams. These festivals are pointless then. She turned to leave, about to say, so, I don't have mid-sentence. Ellie slipped. Luckily, Rockin reacted quickly and caught her. He was a little startled, oh my. Then he reminded her, you have to be careful. Ellie stammered, blushing, thank you. Rockin returned to the main topic. If I'm going by your logic, that means you owe me one now. Ellie tried to avoid the topic again. To fulfill my duties as the Rose, I have to study. Rockin suddenly agreed, then, so do I. Ellie was surprised by this and asked dumbfounded. Rockin replied, we'll study together. Ellie quickly understood, She thought for a moment, we have some overlapping classes, so it might be helpful. Finding it reasonable, she agreed, okay, let's study together then. However, Ellie also wanted to check Rockin's academic level, so she asked, but, Senior, are your grades good? Rockin countered with a question of his own. Do you like people with good grades? Ellie was once again puzzled by his intentions. She answered softly, well, I like my grades to be higher than others. Hearing this, Rockin chuckled, that's so you. He suggested a time to meet. Then let's meet tomorrow on the second floor of the West Library. She nodded in agreement. Okay. After Rockin left, Ellie leaned against the door and sighed. She slumped down, thinking I should have refused outright. During these exams, I'll probably be seeing him all the time. The next morning arrived quickly, and they both met at the library. They studied and reviewed together. However, someone's concentration was broken by the gaze of the boy across from her. Ellie was slightly dazed. Rockin, sensing he was being watched, opened his eyes in surprise. He asked her what's wrong. Ellie shyly admitted, well, because you're handsome, so I looked for a bit. She thought about him, truly like he was haunting her. Ellie appeared remorseful. If I bothered you, I apologize. Ellie, while doodling something, asked, Senior, do you know what you're like right now? She quickly finished and held it up in front of Rockin, answering her own question, just shining. Ellie honestly expressed her thoughts. I look closely, and that's exactly it. I shine. I'm the best. You always seem to feel that way. Rockin was a little surprised by her bluntness. You think I'm like that? Ellie didn't hesitate to reply. Yes, that's right. Do you remember the first time we met? That day, Rockin had confronted Ellie. Are you trying to pull some trick to build a relationship? Don't get your hopes up. Ellie admonished him. Don't do that to others when you meet them for the first time. At that time, I thought, Senior, you're a crazy person obsessed with yourself. Rockin started to take her words to heart, thinking narcissism. Ellie added, if I wasn't close to you, I would still think that way now. Having heard all of that, Rockin lowered his eyes and chuckled softly. Is that so? Ellie, seeing this expression of his for the first time, was a little stunned. Look, keep that relaxed face. I couldn't imagine it at all. I thought he was just an arrogant nobleman, but the more I get to know him, the more I see him as a handsome and unique person. The final exams were over, and Ellie could finally relax. She thought with relief, now I'm free, I can finally rest. The way to enjoy the comfort right after the exams was to immediately dive in her soft bed. Thinking about getting a deep sleep, she immediately fell into the slumber she had lost during the exam period. Sufi, seeing this, thought she was truly resting in peace. So I slept for 3 days and nights. On the day the scores were announced, Ellie was quite excited. I woke up, and it's the day the scores are announced. She looked at the scoreboard expectantly. What place am I? I hope I'm in the top 10. Melissa's name caught Ellie's eye just as she thought. The top first-year student is... She shuddered in disbelief. Melissa? If it's Melissa, then the Princess of Oris. The country allied with Octaga, the one who was with Damien in the garden that night. That's the name I always pretended not to see, even if I glanced at it. I didn't expect to see it here again. Ellie was lost in thought. It's clearly her. Now I don't feel surprised at all. Seeing her spacing out like that, a classmate next to her reminded her. Oh my God, Ellie, you're in second place. Congratulations. Ellie only then remembered her own achievement, her eyes lighting up with joy. Oh my God, the thank you. Ellie thought about the hard days of studying and felt no regrets. See, staying up late to study is worthwhile. Where's he? What place is Senior Rockin? He doesn't study very hard. I thought he'd be last, but he's second to last from the top. Ellie felt like she'd been struck by lightning. From looks to intelligence, is there no conscience? Ellie wondered, is there anything he's not good at? Humble, friendly to everyone. Then she quickly changed her mind. Why think about it beforehand? I'll congratulate him when I see him. She searched around the school, but couldn't find Rockin. Ellie thought to herself, I didn't see him today, either. Appeared. It's short, but the exams start tomorrow, and I couldn't say goodbye to him before leaving, could I? Suddenly, Ellie overheard snippets of conversation. Ellie. The person herself was hiding behind the wall, listening to every word. The Princess of Otogia. Yeah, this time, that princess came in second. Turns out they weren't bad-mouthing her, but secretly praising her. That's amazing. Everyone had high expectations, even before she enrolled. She's a princess with outstanding looks, too. That's right, the rumors are true, so everyone adores her. But when we'll rockin', while she was feeling proud of herself, a voice echoed from behind Ellie. Ellie, where are you going? Ellie startled and turned around, recognizing the voice and replying, "Oh, when did you get here?" Just as Ellie predicted, the others looked terrified upon seeing Rockin. What do we do? Did the upperclassmen hear everything? They seemed flustered by his appearance. However, everything Ellie heard from them was quite pleasant, so she thought, since I heard compliments, I'll let them off the hook. Then she turned back and said, "I'm going back to the dormitory." Rockin didn't seem surprised. "I guess that's so." The two went to talk privately by the fountain. Ellie asked, "Did you hear everything?" Rockin replied, "Yeah, I also saw you eavesdropping." Ellie suddenly remembered something. They were talking about you after that, too. Anyway, Rockin interrupted, "Thinking back, I didn't get to hear the answer." Ellie was confused. The answer to what? Rockin casually repeated, "Where were you going?" Ellie hid her true thoughts. "I can't tell him I was looking for him." She made an excuse to avoid answering. "Looking back, you really are the type to obsess over unimportant things." Rockin affirmed, "As expected, you have good eyesight. I will definitely achieve what I want." Ellie didn't expect this. He's reacting so seriously? She teased, "So, is this the only weakness of the top first-year student?" Rockin seemed confused. Ellie turned away again and said, "You usually interrupt, but why are you so quiet now?" "I saw the results board. It wasn't easy. Congratulations on first place." Rockin smiled and replied similarly, "You too, congratulations on second place." After that, Ellie continued to stay with him, asking trivial questions that I thought you didn't study. "Or were you hiding it?" Rockin answered vaguely, "Don't know." Ellie pouted, "What's with that? You won't tell me?" So stingy. Leaving farewells behind, the break for academy and student reforms began. Ellie read a book while looking out the window, smiling. "I've returned to the kingdom after several months." She stepped off the train and heard a familiar voice call out, "Princess Ellie." She immediately reacted. Damien greeted Ellie politely. "It's been a while. Was your trip safe?" Ellie was quite surprised to see him there. She handed her luggage to Damien and asked, "Did you come and pick me up yourself?" Damien replied warmly, "Of course. The princess is arriving. I have to come and welcome you." Looking at him, Ellie recalled the past. "When I enrolled, I was heartbroken to part with him. Now it feels like it's been so long, like meeting an old friend again." Ellie thought this, but still acted close. "Have you been well?" But before he could answer, another voice interrupted, "Princess." Her nanny appeared before the two of them and asked, "Have you been well?" Ellie was so happy to see her that she forgot to ask her fiancé whatever she had intended to. The nanny said, Ellie. Ellie ran to hug her nanny, saying, "I missed you so much." Her nanny sternly reminded her, but didn't push her away. "You must maintain your composure." Ellie, unconcerned, continued her enthusiastic inquiries. "While I was away, were you well?" Her nanny looked at her for a moment, then replied, "I've been well, but everyone has missed you." Seeing her nanny adjust her glasses, Ellie guessed immediately that she was lying. The nanny suddenly spoke up, "Master Damien has been anxiously awaiting your return for hours." Damien was taken aback. "Ah," he replied politely. "Those words should be saved for when I'm not around. Even if I weren't here, I'd be embarrassed to hear them directly." Ellie smiled brightly, but inwardly thought, "Liar. The person you're waiting for is Melissa." While returning home in the carriage, Ellie excitedly boasted about her accomplishments. By the way, has everyone heard news? The news about me placing second. Her nanny took out her magic mirror and asked, "Didn't you already use the expensive communication mirror to tell me?" Ellie, hearing this, was very pleased. She asked, "So, is there anything the two of you want to say to me?" Damien and her nanny clapped together in praise. "Truly outstanding." Ellie giggled shyly. Her nanny mentioned something. "Damien, if you enroll next year, just follow the princess's lead." Damien didn't rush to answer. "The entrance exam results aren't out yet." Ellie chimed in, "If it's you, passing the entrance exam won't be difficult, right?" Damien, sipping his tea, replied, "You overestimate me." Ellie continued to praise him. "I'm not overestimating you. You'll become a treasure of our kingdom." Looking at Damien, Ellie thought, "Even if it breaks my heart, he's a necessary talent." Damien, hearing Ellie's words, cheerfully thanked her. "Even if it's just a formality, thank you." Damien's golden hair caught Ellie's attention. She suddenly remembered someone. Although they had the same hair color, the feeling was completely different. Damien felt gentle, while he felt somewhat cold and sharp in a certain way. Perhaps he was someone who wouldn't easily yield his position to anyone, a person with a cold and strange aura. "It's not right to be thinking of another man while riding with my fiancé." Ellie quickly dismissed the thought. "I'm back in my kingdom and still thinking about him." "Stop it." Damien, not hearing her speak anymore, called out tentatively, princess? He smiled and said, if you have any worries, you can always talk to me. Ellie replied frankly, it's nothing important. Damien fell into silence again. Then he appeared sorrowful, his voice becoming hesitant. I always thought I was the closest person to you, but it feels like we're gradually growing distant, and that makes me very sad. But Ellie felt disheartened, thinking to herself, what makes you sad is probably because you can't go see Melissa. After all, it was miraculous that she had once liked Damien so much since she was 12, but after just a few months, those feelings had gradually faded. But someday Damien will become my husband. While Ellie was lost in thought, Damien softly called, Princess. Ellie slightly opened her eyes, looking at the man before her with a slightly melancholic thought. He's someone I can't distance myself from. At that moment, Damien spoke up, reminding her, we've arrived at the palace. Hearing this, Ellie replied gently, yes. But in her mind, thoughts began to surface. Even if Damien had someone else, even if her heart fluttered every time she saw Rockin, her future marriage to Damien wouldn't change. Thinking of this, Ellie's hand, which had been resting on Damien's, unconsciously withdrew, creating some distance. She brushed past him and said curtly, thank you. You worked hard today. Damien was still bewildered. He tried to hold her back, saying, let me walk you to your room. But Ellie skillfully refused. There's no need. I also have to get ready, so I'm not late for the evening banquet. After that, she left without a second glance, leaving Damien standing motionless in the quiet space. He watched her retreating figure, wondering, something that is different. Time quickly passed, and now Ellie's entire residence was filled with lively music. Inside the banquet hall, Ellie was thoroughly enjoying herself, happily dancing in her sparkling gown. Everyone around her, including Ellie, was immersed in the melodious, slow music. While she was enjoying herself, Ellie happened to glance at a banner with the title, Congratulations to Eulogia for achieving second place, which left her speechless. Honestly, father, she muttered, Zudni, hier deins Partner spoke, Princess. It was her swordsmanship instructor, Lancelot. Sir Lewis hesitated slightly before saying, I've heard rumors that the princess is close with people from the Empire. Hearing this, Ellie asked in surprise, oh, how did you know? Lancelot replied honestly, I have eyes and ears everywhere in this kingdom. Ellie asked, confused, are we not allowed to be close? They're from a rival nation, so, seeing her concern, Lancelot explained, while studying, it's all right to befriend people from the Empire, to laugh and dine with them. Hearing him say this, Ellie became even more puzzled. Then what's the problem? Suddenly, Sir Lancelot's voice lowered. After graduation, things will be different. Please, princess, just enjoy these dreamy moments in the present. If you invest too much affection in them, the only one who will be hurt is you, princess. The words of her swordsmanship instructor gradually chilled Eulogia's cheerful spirit. She raised her glass of wine, thinking, I know that too. Once time passes and I graduate, the relationship between me and them won't be the same as it is now. At that moment, a figure approached Ellie. Recognizing the person, Ellie asked in surprise, Damien, aren't you enjoying the party? Damien replied cheerfully, of course I am, but parties are rare when you're not here. Hearing him say that, Ellie playfully said, this party is all thanks to me getting second place. You should thank this princess. Seeing her confidence, Damien smiled happily, his eyes crinkling. But suddenly his voice softened. But Princess Ellie, is something wrong at the academy? Ellie replied with a hint of surprise. Something wrong? No. Damien placed his hand on his heart and asked seriously, could it be that you don't miss me? Hearing this endearing question, Ellie laughed dryly and said, hey, what are you asking? Of course I miss you a lot, Ellie said, patting Damien's shoulder reassuringly. Seeing Ellie turn to leave, Damien called out, Princess. Ellie pointed towards the party and explained, I have to greet the other guests. Enjoy the party and get home safe. Immediately after, Ellie left, leaving Damien standing forlornly with his hand still outstretched. This action of Ellie's made him retract his hand in heartache. A thought crossed Damien's mind. It really wasn't me being paranoid. What has affected her? At the Kasucha Imperial Palace, Rockin ate while thinking. It's been a while, hasn't it? A harmonious meal like this. Just then, someone called him Prince. The person who had just spoken was Empress Ira of the Kasucha Empire. She continued to remind him, have you forgotten your table manners? Faced with this question, Rockin calmly replied, I haven't forgotten, so don't worry, mother. On the contrary, I missed the dinners back home. Hearing this, Ira pressed her advantage. Is that so? I heard you were busy enjoying life at the academy, so I thought you wouldn't have time to miss the Empire. Rakan immediately retorted, I'm surprised someone as busy as you is so concerned about me. Sitting amidst the stifling atmosphere, Rakan remained nonchalant. It's always like this when I'm with my stepmother. I don't find it bothersome anymore. After their passive-aggressive exchange, the meal was completely enveloped in an indescribable tension. The blonde-haired girl, Louise, lowered her head and sighed. Oh, the boy sitting opposite her wasn't doing much better. He thought to himself, it's so suffocating. The blonde-haired girl, Louise, Rakan's older sister, glanced towards the main table and thought, but father is here. Let's just finish this meal in silence. But at that moment, her father suddenly spoke. I've heard, Prince. Do you have feelings for the princess of our rival nation? With so many eyes on him, as a prince no less. Hearing this, Rakan immediately interrupted him. I'm only acting according to my beliefs, to maintain the true spirit of the Rose and Lily election. Iris seized the opportunity to scold him. You must understand the responsibilities you have to bear. If you continue like this, how will you be able to shoulder greater responsibilities in the future? Her provocative words successfully broke Rakan's composure. He put down his cutlery and sternly replied, Mother, perhaps in your eyes, I am nothing but a disgrace. Perhaps you already know that I achieved first place this time. Even though we don't share the same blood, I always wanted to be a son you could be proud of. Meanwhile, Louise, sitting between them, felt the tension rising. Hearing Rakan's reproachful words, Ira exclaimed agitatedly, Everything I say is out of concern for you. Seeing this, Rakan simply smirked. Concern? Or a threat disguised as concern? He bluntly stated, You still don't trust me, do you? You're making me sad. Hearing this, Ira looked guiltily at Rakan's father and tried to justify herself. What are you saying, Prince? Don't misunderstand my concern for you. Rahan quietly tugged on Rakan's sleeve, wanting to remind him to stop. Indeed, the whole scene had frightened Rahan to the point of tears. He cried inwardly, Brother, please stop. Seeing his younger brother's pitiful expression, Rakan smiled happily and thought, how strange. Even though there's no Empress, I don't feel any discomfort towards Rahan, the Empress's biological son. It's actually quite pleasant. That hellish period has finally passed. A voice called from outside Rakan's room. Brother, may I come in for a moment? Rakan calmly asked as Rahan entered. What is it? Rahan looked a little troubled as he said, I heard about what happened at school. Why did you do that to the princess of the rival nation? But Rakan didn't answer his question. Instead, he countered, Were my actions so unusual that I have to be interrogated like this? At this point, Rahan seemed to have an answer for him in his mind. Perhaps it was, he mumbled. He then continued hesitantly. His Majesty the Emperor is also curious. I am too. About it. Finally, Rahan received an answer from Rakan. Because she's beautiful. Rahan froze for a few seconds after hearing this. He blurted out, bewildered, Meanwhile, Rakan calmly repeated his answer. Because she's beautiful, I voted for her. They told me to vote for the Rose, so I did. Is that enough of an answer? Rahan still seemed shocked. Clinging to a sliver of hope, he asked, It's not really just because of that, is it? Then, suspiciously, he added, Do you have feeling for that princess? Rakan immediately dismissed the idea. That's impossible. She's the princess of a rival nation. Rahan finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seems I asked a foolish question. There's no way you'd easily fall for that princess, right? Rakan remained silent, gazing at the moon outside in response to Rahan's question. Seeing this, Rahan continued his long monologue. I apologize for suddenly saying this, but you should start seeing someone. You'll be very busy after graduation. Only then did Rakan reply, his voice low and filled with unspoken thoughts. People never know what will happen to them. Many mistakenly believe we live in a magnificent and splendid palace, but they're disappointed to realize it's just a castle made of sand. Rahan was taken aback by his brother's words. That a castle made of sand, he exclaimed. Rakan didn't answer, instead saying gravely, Surely my future spouse will be someone who carries ambition, won't they? Upon hearing this, Rahan's eyes widened suddenly, a hint of fear within them. He hastily explained, Why would the next emperor's palace be made of sand? I would never let that happen. In response to his younger brother's worry, Rakan simply said calmly, All right. Seeing this, Rahan regained his confidence, puffing out his chest as he declared, I, Rahan, can lead the empire better than anyone. Leave it to me. I'll become a strong arm you can lean on. Just so you know, this is flattery for the next emperor. While Rahan chattered cheerfully, Rakan's face grew serious. You have a natural talent for this, don't you? He said, his voice hardening. But such flattery isn't necessary. What if you were the emperor? Rahan was completely stunned by these words. He blurted out, What am I supposed to do when a prince says such things? I know what kind of person Mother is. Now, I'll pretend I didn't hear anything and leave, because I'm afraid I'll hear more of the same. Hearing this, Rakan could only agree. All right then, go ahead. After Rahan left, he looked wistfully at the moon outside and thought, I've been thinking about when I can escape this situation. I have to give Rahan a hint when he grows up and I graduate. It's not an impossible wish. Thinking this, Rakan leaned his head against the window pane in frustration. Time flew by like an arrow, and soon, Elijah had been back in Actigia for a week. She was currently relaxing on her favorite bed, reading a book. Finding herself at the last page, Ellie was a little surprised. Oh, I've finished it already. She cheerfully decided, I'll borrow the next one. But this was also the moment Elijah had finished all the romance novels she had borrowed from the school library, bored to the point of restlessness. And it was no wonder, because Elijah had just spent a week with a busier schedule than anyone else. Recalling what she had done in the past week, Ellie thought, it was fun, but I still feel empty. I wonder how they're doing? Come to think of it, it was truly fate that Sophie and I became roommates. And Rakan, thinking about him, Ellie unconsciously reached for the novel on the bed, sinking into her thoughts. Come to think of it, the male lead in this book also has blonde hair. Before her thoughts could wander into strange territory, Ellie's reason quickly returned. She shook her head in denial oh no. I have nothing to do, so my mind is wandering. This situation. Just then, someone entered and called, Princess, are you awake? Seeing the person approach, Ellie said brightly, Nanny, you're finally here. I have something to tell you. Faced with her enthusiasm, the nanny replied cautiously, Every time you're like this, I get worried. Ellie responded in a coquettish tone, What are you talking about? The next morning, the nanny was at the gate seeing Ellie off. Before she left, the nanny requested, Princess, may I borrow your hand for a moment? As soon as Ellie extended her hand, the nanny placed a sparkling ring in it. Surprised, Ellie asked, What is this? The nanny kindly explained, This will prove your identity as a princess. You might think I'm a silly old woman. But contrary to the nanny's expectations, Ellie replied happily, I wouldn't think that at all. Relieved, the nanny voiced her concern. May I ask why you're in such a hurry, Princess? Ellie explained excitedly. At the beginning of the semester, I just wanted to sleep because I had to adjust to the time difference. Now that I've become a model student, I have to set a good example, right? The nanny praised her. That's a good attitude. Ellie's eyes were now brimming with tears. She called out emotionally, Nanny. Then she whispered in the nanny's ear, When you miss me, just use the communication window. After a drawn-out farewell, Ellie finally boarded the carriage. She turned to the nanny and said, I really have to go now. The nanny continued to offer her various reminders. The temperature fluctuates a lot there, so please be careful. As the carriage moved away, Ellie looked back and called out, I know. Nanny, take care of yourself. Then the wheels turned faster and faster. Watching Ellie's shadow leave, the nanny couldn't help but sob. I'm so silly. The princess has grown up. At that moment, in the school library, Ellie searched for a book, muttering to herself. Let's see. Maybe it's here. Let's see. The title is... The marquee is... found it. Her joy was short-lived as she realized with disappointment. But it's too high. Where's the ladder? While she was still wondering what to do, someone suddenly approached, placed a hand on her shoulder, and said, The marquis is only infatuated with that girl. Taking the book down for her, Rakan asked, Is this the book you're looking for? Are you alright, Elijah? The moment she saw Rakan again, she was happy, but suddenly, Your Highness, please just enjoy these dreamy moments in the present. If you invest too much affection in them, the one who'll be tired is only Your Highness. The words she heard at the party suddenly flashed back in her mind. Seeing her looking a bit distracted, he called out, Elijah. She quickly looked up and smiled, thinking to herself, All right, what does all of that matter? I'm still at the academy. As long as I'm here, I just need to forget all of that and enjoy myself to the fullest. A cramped space filled with light, tiny dust particles floating in the air. For a moment, the two just stared at each other in silence. Ellie coldly exclaimed, It's stuffy. Rakan chuckled in response. I apologize. But what book is this? She replied, Just a novel. He asked back, bewildered. She confirmed awkwardly, Just a normal romance novel. He asked curiously, You like this kind of thing? Then wondered to himself, Why would she want to read this? She smiled and confirmed, Yes, I was about to borrow it, so please give it to me. He asked suspiciously, Why do I feel like you're trying to stop me from seeing this book? His perceptiveness impressed her, and she thought, He's quite sharp. Then she softly explained, It's probably not suited to your tastes, senior. He immediately added, I'm curious, though, and I got to it first. Hearing this, Ellie asked in disbelief, No way. Why are you suddenly acting so childish? Rakan quickly suggested, Then how about this? You read it first, then tell me the story. She chuckled and asked back, "What, that desperate?" He immediately set a time during tea. "So let's go." She thought, stunned, "Huh, now?" A moment later, reading the book, Ellie couldn't help but feel uneasy, thinking, "Is this okay? No matter how I think about it, I think I'm also attracted to this handsome guy. But why isn't there anyone else besides us?" The usual scene of the academy 4 days before the start of term. What's the point? Isn't he bored? Maybe he's not thinking too much about it. It seems like I'm the only fool. Rockin suddenly asked curiously, "So what characters are in that book?" Ellie thought for a few seconds and replied, The female lead disguises herself as a boy and dreams of becoming a knight, and the male lead is a handsome guy with blonde hair." Rockin rested his chin in his hand and tilted his head slightly, asking, "The handsome guy with blonde hair, does he have to read? There's someone here too." Ellie, sweating, calmly asked back, "I know. So, you came back early just to show me this face?" He replied casually, "What? It was just convenient. There's nothing interesting in the Empire." She asked in surprise, "Really? I've been having a lot of fun." Hearing this, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "How is your kingdom a fun and interesting place?" She replied with a bright smile, "Of course. They welcome me back joyfully, just like how I've always longed for them." He murmured thoughtfully, could it be a difference in environment or a difference in thinking? Then, somewhat absent-mindedly, he thought to himself, perhaps both. While gazing at him, Ellie couldn't help but marvel silently. The way he drinks tea looks so elegant, but it's just ordinary flower tea. Could it be that the lips drinking that tea also have the fragrance of flowers? Lost in her thoughts, she accidentally dropped her teacup on the floor. So she hurriedly explained, "I'm sorry, the tea was too hot, so," and then scolded herself internally. "I'm such an idiot. Where are my thoughts wandering off to?" Rockin suddenly reached out and took Ellie's hand, reproaching her, "You still don't know how to take care of yourself, princess?" "Let me see," she stammered, asserting, "I am fine now. It's not that bad." While pushing him away, she blushed, thinking to herself, "I keep getting drawn to him." He suddenly turned his head and asked, "Elysia, what are you planning to do tomorrow?" She froze, replying, I was planning to read and practice the violin a bit." "Is something the matter?" he asked curiously. "So you don't have anything to do?" She startled, repeating, "Huh? Didn't I say I was going to read and practice the violin?" He immediately suggested, "Well then, if you don't have anything to do, let's take a walk around the lake tomorrow." The next day, after finishing the book, Ellie closed it and exclaimed joyfully, "Oh my goodness, what a touching story." Rockin, hearing this, smiled and added, "It seems like the story had a happy ending." She continued excitedly, "Right? Now I'll give it to you, Senior. You should read this book directly. It's just the right opportunity. Senior, please read it and nurture the feelings of love. You don't have a lover either." He immediately replied, "You don't have a lover either, just like me." She responded, a little embarrassed, "I'm a princess, so my fiancé will probably be chosen for me by my father." He suddenly called out, "Elysia." She replied, "Yes." He boldly asked, "So, do you already have a fiancé?" Ellie quickly closed her eyes and thought to herself, perhaps Demian also has someone else. Although this marriage has been clearly decided, there might still be changes. Finishing her thoughts, she replied, no. Rockin, hearing this, was momentarily stunned. Then, lowering his head, he continued reading and said, "I understand." Gazing at him, she pondered, thinking about it. "I'm quite curious about this person. He must have met a few people before. Actually, with a face like that, not getting married is a waste for humanity." Having thought this, Ellie boldly asked, "Senior, are you engaged to anyone?" He calmly replied, "Not yet." She smiled and continued, "But you've dated before, right? How many people have you dated? 10? 20? Sweating nervously, he confirmed, "I've never dated anyone." "Do I absolutely have to date someone?" she asked back in surprise. "You've never dated anyone?" "Senior, why is that?" He didn't answer immediately, but gently closed his book. Then he calmly explained the reason. "You haven't forgotten that I don't want to miss out on the highest position, have you? And my swordsmanship is also very exceptional." She impatiently asked, "So?" He continued, "I study law, philosophy, diplomacy, constantly practice, and participate in social activities. Therefore, I don't have time to date anyone. Unfortunately, but that's the complete truth." Ellie, after hearing this, flinched and stammered, That may be so." Rockin rested his chin on his hand and said with utmost confidence, "I am the most excellent person. I pride myself on being the best fiancé on the continent." She stammered, Yes. Then, puzzled, she thought to herself, "What is he trying to brag about to me?" She then smiled brightly and exclaimed, "Anyway, it's surprising that you've never dated anyone. Most people have dated at least one person." She hadn't finished her sentence when the carriage window was suddenly pierced by something and shattered, causing the carriage to shake due to the two horses panicking at the unexpected sound. Despite feeling bewildered and scared, she curiously peeked out. Unexpectedly, what she saw was Rockin putting his arm around her and pulling her into his embrace to protect her from getting hurt during the fall. He said in a low voice, "Stay here." Then he called out loudly to the guard outside, "What's going on?" The guard with tied back hair immediately replied, "A surprise attack. Probably bandits." Ellie asked in surprise, "Bandits?" He calmly reassured her, "Elysia, close your eyes and count. I'll be back soon." He quickly took off his coat, put it over her, and hurried away. She gulped nervously and started counting 1, 2, then suddenly she berated herself in her thoughts. Stupid Elysia. As she continued counting 5, 6, I didn't learn swordsmanship to hide like this. Just as Ellie counted to 7, Rockin instantly swung his sword and dealt with a bandit. And, quick as a flash, he detected the whereabouts of another bandit who was aiming a bow from the shadows, attempting to ambush him with an arrow. But unfortunately for the bandit, Rockin swiftly dodged just as Ellie counted to 8. Then, calmly, he walked toward the bandit with his sword, causing him to yell out in fear. Rockin coldly said 9. Then, he couldn't help but reproachfully ask, "Zin, why didn't you detect their hiding place?" Zin immediately bowed his head and apologized. "Zin, please forgive me." He quickly gave the order, "It's best to defeat the bandits before the rest of their comrades arrive. Let's move to the open area nearby." Ellie suddenly popped her head out and called, "Senior," she said, then slowly stepped outside and added, "I couldn't be of any help. Don't be too hard on him." Eli didn't say anything more, but continued her thoughts internally. "It's my fault." Rock in surprise called out, "Elysia." He then extended his hand and said, "Be careful." She silently continued thinking, while protecting the carriage and dealing with many opponents. Seeing his hand was a bit dirty after the recent fight, he quickly withdrew it and instructed Zin escort her. At that moment, she suddenly reached out with both hands and grasped his. Worriedly, she asked, "Are you injured?" He was a little surprised by her tone and thought, "Why does her voice sound so worried?" Then he nodded and replied, "Yes." He couldn't help but think, how strange, she's reassuring me. Seeing the two engrossed in their moment, oblivious to the situation, the orange-haired guard quickly spoke up, we should get going." Rockin glanced at him and said, "All right, but first, take it off." Taken aback by Rockin's bold request, the orange-haired guard could only stare in surprise and stammer, "Yes, sir." A moment later, seeing the guard's outer coat now draped over Rockin's shoulders, Eli couldn't help but chuckle and ask, "Senior, do you always tease your guards like this?" He calmly replied, "I don't know." Hearing his response, she tactfully praised him. Even with a change of clothes, having only 2 people accompany, you could make him worry. "You have a wonderful guard." Knowing she wanted to ask something but was hesitant, he prompted, "Elysia, is there something you want to tell me?" His sudden question startled her, leaving her momentarily speechless. After a brief pause, she shyly replied, "Yes, Senior." "Are you used to situations like the one just now?" Rockin closed his eyes and calmly remarked, "I didn't expect you to ask that." Eli smiled and asked, "Really?" She then pondered, even though she couldn't help but wonder what kind of lives the nobility live. After a moment of silence contemplating her question, he spoke, not with an answer, but instead, he suddenly reached out and took her hand. Gently, he said, "We can rest for a bit." Seeing a clear, open lake before her, she exclaimed in surprise, "A lake." Then, excitedly, she took off her shoes and stepped into the water. Playfully splashing, Eli thought, "Enjoying myself like this, that it feels more like I'm here to play than to escape." Seeing her joy, he couldn't help but smile. She turned to him and suggested, "Senior, come here too." He replied, "All right." "No." Rockin smiled and replied, "Of course." Hearing him say so, she immediately voiced her worries, including her fear of death. "Is it possible to become numb to it at some point?" he asked with a hint of curiosity. "Why are you curious about that?" Elysia lowered her head slightly and murmured, "I will become queen, and one day I will have to go to the battlefield. I don't want to show any sign of running away or fear." He didn't answer immediately but thought to himself, becoming numb to death. Then he softly explained, "If death is a momentary pain, then facing it is like being stabbed with a knife. Just a second of hesitation and your head will roll. On the battlefield, any emotion is a luxury. When the sword strikes repeatedly and wears down, fear ceases to exist. Can someone who forgets the importance of life become a ruler? After listening to his explanation, Elysia suddenly let out a small ah. Knowing that she was still quite confused by what he had just said, he continued to explain, I sometimes have questions like that. I think it's better to be wary of becoming accustomed, like clothes getting wet in a drizzle. A person can change in an instant just by taking a single step. Relationships are the same. Just then, Elysia suddenly saw something and hurriedly asked, What's that? Holding a basket, the purple-haired guard called out. Hey, Rockin quickly asked, What's going on? The guard hurriedly placed the basket on the ground, folded his arms, and replied somewhat haughtily, Our Lady was passing by. She said to give this to the pitiful ones. Hearing this, both of them simultaneously formed a giant question mark in their minds. The guard continued haughtily, You don't need to greet or anything. Just take the basket. Elysia couldn't help but feel dubious and thought to herself, Our senior and I being treated like beggars now. A moment later, as soon as the purple-haired guard left, they both burst out laughing. Seeing Rockin eating an apple with apparent relish, Elysia asked curiously, You must be hungry, huh? Hearing her question, he immediately offered her the apple he was eating. Elysia blushed and quickly replied, I wasn't asking for any. He calmly continued, I thought the cookies weren't enough. Seeing the sun about to set, Elysia couldn't help but ask worriedly, What should we do tonight? I've kept it safe. If we come across a house, I'll sell this. Rockin replied, It won't be easy to sell a royal symbol. Trust me, Elysia thought to herself doubtfully. He's so confident even though he is nothing. Then, they both quickly stood up and left the lakeshore. Unexpectedly, before they had gone far, a carriage approached and someone called out, Over there, you too. Want a ride? Even if it's in the luggage compartment, it's fine. Elysia quickly covered her mouth with her hand and whispered, Let's think of this as a new experience and go. Rockin said nothing but glanced at her. The short-haired girl suddenly exclaimed, then smiled brightly and suggested, No, the luggage compartment is inconvenient anyway. Let's sit together. The brown-haired man sitting next to her, hearing this, cried out in alarm. What? Then, extremely worried, he loudly advised, Lady Lily, what are you saying? If you get infected by these people. She calmly asked back, Does taking care of my father's people require the Baron's permission? He stammered, Teach, that's not it. But Lily quickly suggested, Come on, let's get in the carriage. Rockin quickly placed his hand on his chest to express his gratitude and replied, If you are kind enough to help, I will accept it gratefully. The brown-haired man quickly closed his eyes and reproachfully thought, Just you wait until we're married. I'll fix that stubbornness of yours completely. Extending his hand to Rockin, he said gently, Here, you go first. As soon as she was seated in the carriage, Elysia immediately smiled brightly and thanked her. Thank you again for your kindness. Hearing her voice, the brown-haired man suddenly opened his eyes and glanced at her for a moment. Then he quickly turned his head to look out the window and scoffed, thinking to himself with some uncertainty, I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. Then he suddenly shouted, Yes. He glanced around and cleared his throat, looking quite uncomfortable. Seeing this, Elysia quickly brought her hair up to her nose and wondered suspiciously, I think I might smell a bit. Rockin quickly reassured her, Your scent is very pleasant, so don't worry about it. Seeing that the two seemed quite close, Lily boldly asked directly, Are you two lovers? Elysia asked back, dumbfounded. Then she explained in embarrassment, No, that's not it. That's not the case. Meanwhile, Rockin said nothing, but stole a glance at her. Hearing this, the brown-haired man was extremely angry and asked through gritted teeth, How dare you be so impudent? Elysia retorted indifferently, How dare I? I'm royalty. You're the one who should be hearing such words. After her words, the atmosphere immediately fell silent for a moment. Then he unconsciously broke out in a sweat and asked in a startled voice, What? Lily didn't reply, but silently observed the two and thought, Come to think of it, if she's a commoner, something's not right. Clothes dirty with blood, shoes covered in mud after walking in the forest. After all, what royalty would travel without servants or guards? Although she's a bit out of it. It's quite interesting. Seeing her remaining silent while her gaze was fixed on Elysia and Rockin, the brown-haired man quickly asked, My lady, why are you just staring at that crazy girl like that? She calmly reminded him, Baron, your voice is too loud. He emphatically stated, Impersonating royalty should be punished. She quickly reassured him, Calm down, no one here has been offended. Seeing this, Rockin couldn't help but wonder. The main subject of the conversation doesn't seem to care. I don't know if she's smart or slow-witted. Thanks to her, I don't have time to be sad. Lily seemed bored. Seeing him suddenly chuckle to himself made her curious. What's so funny? She asked. He replied with a faint smile, I don't know. It was quickly getting dark. Elysia and Rockin got out of the carriage. Lily said with a hint of regret, "You two didn't have to get out." Elysia quickly explained, "No, I wanted to get some fresh air," seeing a somewhat dilapidated house in the distance. She couldn't help but ask with concern, "Is it really okay to just stay here? Isn't this a house? If you're planning to sleep on the streets, we'll invite you to the castle." Eli politely added, "I didn't mean it like that. Thank you for the offer, but I'll just accept your kindness. I have a place I can rely on." Rockin didn't say anything, but just looked at her and smiled. Knowing that even with further urging, she wouldn't change her mind, Lily said, "Well then, there's no other way. Be careful going home." With that, she quickly turned around and headed towards the carriage. The brown-haired man with the annoyed expression lingered, pointing directly at Elysia and warning, "You're only safe today thanks to Lady Lily. If I see you again, I'll smash that pretty little head of yours." Elysia scoffed and retorted, "Oh yeah? If you can." This greatly angered him, and he violently placed his hand on her shoulder, yelling, "You insolent little brat." Just as he was about to lay his hands on her, Rockin immediately pointed his sword directly at him, startling him, and causing him to fall to the ground. Rockin growled, "Let go." Just then, Lily suddenly called out, "Baron, how long are you planning to stay there? And you two, stop it." Hearing this, Rockin quickly sheathed his sword and calmly replied, "I've been helped, but I've also been quite rude." Lily quickly retorted, "No, you should go." Hearing her say so, he and Elysia quickly started to leave, while Elysia waved goodbye to Lily. The purple-haired guard anxiously asked, "Are you all right, sir?" He gritted his teeth in anger and replied, "I have something to take care of. Call the swift ones here immediately." As they were walking, Elysia suddenly sensed something, and she quickly warned, "Over there, behind us." Rockin gently placed his hand on her shoulder and softly reassured her, "Indeed. Excuse me for a moment." With that, Rockin quickly pulled Elysia into a nearby corner to hide. She asked nervously, "Senior, we finally found this remote village, but they're still chasing us all the way here. Should we hide in the forest like before?" While pulling a dagger from his coat, he instructed, "Although it's not my preferred method, take this. It's yours now." Suddenly given a dagger. And with him saying such ominous words, Elysia was stunned, thinking, "What? He's saying things like last words right in front of me." He quickly turned and instructed, "Stay here." Just as he was about to leave, last words. He quickly turned and instructed, "Stay here." Just as he was about to leave, she suddenly grabbed his sleeve and stammered, "I can fight too." He indifferently confirmed, "Yeah, I know." Elysia felt a bit sullen, thinking, what's with that reaction? Rockin suddenly suggested, "So, this time, we'll use a diversion tactic." She furrowed her brows slightly and seriously replied, "I understand. If you get hurt, I won't let it go." He chuckled, "Do you need to remind me?" A moment later, clutching the dagger in her hand, Elysia confidently thought, "A diversion tactic, huh? All right, if any strangers come here, at least I can take care of myself. Actually, I know I'm not capable enough to fight in a battle." Even when the carriage was attacked by bandits, I could only tremble in fear and couldn't do anything. So that he can fight without having to worry about me, it would be better if I wasn't by his side. Casually placing his foot on the unfortunate pursuer, Rockin haughtily declared, "From now on, I won't let anyone else through. Only 4 left. I'll ask one question." With that, he leisurely walked towards the pursuer in blue clothes. Then he asked in a deep voice, "Do you know who I am?" He didn't answer but screamed in terror, "Jay just wants help." Seeing him about to run, Rockin immediately pressed his sharp sword against his neck and warned him with the same phrase, "Don't make me say it twice." A short while later, suddenly hearing footsteps approaching, Elysia, for some reason, wasn't afraid. Instead, a hint of joy flickered in her eyes. She quickly turned around and asked, "Senior, you're back." Rockin smiled and asked, "What's wrong?" "You must have been worried." He thought to himself, "I work hard to clean myself up." She didn't answer immediately, but thought with surprise, "He looks better than I imagined. He feels even cleaner." Then she indifferently replied, "No way. I trusted you." Seeing her apparent worry for his safety, yet pretending not to care, he couldn't help but smile slightly. Just then, she suddenly turned around and asked, "But where's your coat?" He calmly replied, "I lost it." She immediately scolded him, "That's so clumsy. Wasn't that Zen's?" He chuckled nervously. "I could just buy a new one, right?" Then, he suddenly remembered it and thought, "I can't tell her I threw it away because I was afraid she'd worry." As he walked, Rockin pondered, in the end, the pursuers didn't reveal their identities, but looking at the pattern on their buttons, they're not the Empress's men. That leaves only one answer. Not long after, at an inn, Rockin indifferently placed his sword on the table and requested, "The best room here. Give it to me." The innkeeper nervously asked, The best room, sir. Rockin didn't reply, but stared directly at him with icy eyes, making the innkeeper so uneasy that he immediately averted his gaze. Elysia hurriedly tugged on Rockin's sleeve and whispered, "Senior, given our current circumstances, that's a bit." Just then, the innkeeper suddenly spoke up. I understand. Please follow me." This made Ellie a little overwhelmed, thinking to herself, is this really okay? A moment later, as he led them to the best room in the inn, the innkeeper couldn't help but wonder, after decades of business in this neighborhood, what am I believing in to give them such an expensive room? Finishing his thought, he quickly opened the door to the room and said, "This is the room." Rockin quickly looked around and said with a little dissatisfaction, "Is there a room with a bigger window?" Just then, Ellie cheerfully interrupted, "Wow, this is fine too. I wasn't even expecting a bed like this." Hearing her say that, he immediately confirmed, "This room then?" The innkeeper quickly opened the door to leave and said, "Well then, have a good night." Just then, Ellie wondered aloud, "But, Senior, are we sharing a bed?" This caused Rockin to break out in a sweat, freezing up, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, he noticed something on the floor. Ellie quickly bent down, picked it up, and wondered to herself, why is there a button here? Then, holding it up to Rockin, she asked, "Senior, did you drop this?" As soon as she finished asking, he wordlessly snatched the button, leaving her bewildered. She thought, seriously? I picked it up for him, and he reacts like that. Turning her face away, he said somewhat bashfully, "At first, I thought I would sleep on the floor." She chuckled and continued, "Aha, if Senior wanted the bed, I was going to offer it to you, but now you can't take it back." Rockin quickly suggested, "Go take a bath first. You must be tired." She softly replied, I don't think I can." Hearing this, he asked worriedly, "Are you all right? You're covered in dirt." She explained shyly, "Well, after bathing, I have to come out naked. Putting these clothes back on would be a bit strange." Hearing this, he instinctively slapped his forehead and sighed in exasperation that, I'll find you some clothes to change into, so don't worry and go take a bath." She quickly confirmed, "If that's the case, then I understand." He softly instructed, "The bath is just up the stairs." As soon as he finished speaking, she immediately ran upstairs, leaving him stunned. While soaking in the cool water, she relaxed and thought to herself, enjoying such luxury without any money, I feel like a fraud. Just then, Rockin suddenly knocked on the door and called, "Ellie, I asked the manager and got your robe." Hearing this, she quickly thanked him. "Thank you. Just leave it outside." She added, don't come in here." He shyly asked, "Why would I come in there?" A while later, in the inn's best room, the sound of someone opening the door and entering was suddenly heard. So Rockin quickly asked, "Can I turn around?" Ellie calmly replied, "Of course. Why not? Come in, Senior. The water is lovely." He quickly instructed, before that, take this. I need to go somewhere for a bit. If a stranger breaks in, just slash them." She quickly took the sword and asked curiously, "Yes, where are you going at this hour?" Pushing the door open, he looked back and smiled, replying, "To earn money. You just need to trust and wait for me." Then he quickly left. Sitting on the bed, drying her hair, Ellie pondered, "Just trust me, huh? From a while ago, I've only been relying on Senior's words. How does he plan to earn money?" At that moment, downstairs in the inn, the red-haired man suddenly declared loudly, "This time, I'll definitely double down." Just as he was lifting his beer mug to drink, Rockin approached and suggested, "Me, the place you're going, let me come along." The man slammed his beer mug down on the table and dismissively waved his hand, saying scornfully, "Look here, this isn't a place for youngsters to get involved. If you want to keep your life, get out of here." As soon as he finished speaking, Rockin quickly grabbed his hand. Then, with a sneer, he remarked, "Perhaps it will be something new and interesting." As soon as he finished speaking, the man's eyes widened in surprise, seemingly in pain mixed with a bit of astonishment. Then he suggested in a low voice, "I need to discuss this." He quickly whispered to the brown-haired man sitting opposite him, "He looks like it, but he's strong." The other man asked doubtfully, "Aren't you drunk?" The red-haired man asserted confidently, "This time, it feels really good." Good heavens! After waiting for them to finish their discussion, Rockin asked, "It seems you're done discussing, right? At least buy me a drink. I feel like it'll be difficult to do this sober." Both of them, upon hearing his words, stared at him in astonishment for a moment. Then, the red-haired man immediately burst out laughing in amusement. He then cheerfully praised, "It's been a long time since I've seen such a spirited young man. Just one drink. I should buy you two. This is the newcomer. Take him to see Hazer. He looks like this, but he's incredibly strong. He speaks well and is perceptive. I was even thinking of betting my house deed on him." Glancing at the man, Rockin thought to himself, "He's completely drunk. Hearing this, the doorman invited, "This way, please. Hazer, the newcomer has arrived." Rockin didn't say a word and quickly stepped inside. Hazer, upon seeing him, immediately exclaimed, "Oh my. You're here for the money, right? If so, there's a much easier way. What do you think?" Seeing Rockin remain silent, Hazer quickly stood on tiptoe and gently placed her hand on his chest, coaxing, "This must be a good offer, don't you think?" He said in a low voice, "I'll use that sword." Seeing him ignore her advances, Hazer, slightly embarrassed, quickly reminded him, "If a lady makes a move, you should at least be polite, shouldn't you?" He calmly walked over to the table to retrieve the sword. Then, he nonchalantly replied, "Oh, I'm the type of man who's only loyal to one woman." Hearing this, Hazer immediately asked, "What? You should have said so sooner. So you're not an exception. As soon as Hazer finished speaking, the door guard understood and threw the hidden dagger at Rockin. Seeing this, Rockin quickly drew his sword and blocked the dagger, even though the sword wasn't fully unsheathed. Then, calmly drawing his sword, he commented, "Nice shade of black. When does the match begin?" Hazer smiled and continued, "The test ends here. Follow me." A moment later, in the arena, the red-haired gladiator struggled to his feet, determinedly thinking, "I can't just collapse like this. Ever since this arena was established, I haven't lost a single match. How could I lose to a stranger who only looks good on the outside? Damn it, where did Hazer even find that kid?" Hazer suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my, you seem to have plenty of time to stare. Over here, let's go back." The brown-haired man asked in confusion, "Huh? The match isn't over yet." Hazer indifferently replied, "If you're curious, stay and watch." While you were distracted, the match ended. Indeed, just as Hazer had said, the victor of this match was Rockin. A moment later, Hazer quickly placed a bag of coins on the table and said, "Check it. Your payment as promised." Rockin calmly picked up the bag and said with a smirk, "All right, I'll take it." Seeing him about to leave, Hazer quickly tried to entice him. "If you win 2 matches in a row, the reward doubles. Want to play?" Rockin flatly replied, not really interested. Hazer, stunned, asked what. "I figured as much. He's quite skilled." The brown-haired man asked curiously, "Hazer, aren't you disappointed? You seem to like him." Hazer replied, "Well, someone is waiting for him. I may look like this, but I never tolerate infidelity." The brown-haired man stammered, "No, it's not like that. There's no one to participate in the next match." Hazer casually asked, "So what now? Do you want to participate?" The brown-haired man exclaimed in alarm, "What? No way." Much later, while Ellie was sound asleep in bed, she suddenly heard someone open the door. She quickly opened her eyes, sat up, and asked, "Senior?" Rockin softly replied, "Oh, you're awake?" Rubbing her eyes, Ellie curiously asked, "When did you get back?" He replied, "A little while ago." Suddenly noticing food and drinks on the table, she asked with a pout, "Hey, what's this? Don't tell me you were planning to eat all this by yourself while I was sleeping? I can't believe you." He replied teasingly, "Knowing that, I should have eaten it all." Pouring wine into a glass, Ellie said gratefully, "Anyway, thank you so much for today. Thanks to you, I got to rest well and have dinner." He quickly took the glass from her and apologized softly. "It's me who should apologize. I seem to have inadvertently dragged you into my affairs." Ellie responded reproachfully, "Honestly, who apologizes after being thanked?" "Yes, Your Highness." The accompanying knight respectfully said, "Your Highness." The store manager stammered, "Could it be true?" Rockin made another offer. "Oh, and one more thing." The man was stunned when His Highness Rockin mentioned him. "I want today's events kept confidential." He glanced at the manager with deep, unreadable eyes. The manager hurriedly bowed respectfully to His Highness, his voice trembling. "Of course, Your Highness. Next time, I'll provide even better service." Rockin smiled faintly, as if declining. "Yesterday was enough. I won't forget it. Senior, let's go." Rockin nodded in agreement and walked towards the car with her. "All right." Elijah doodled in her notebook, thinking about His Highness. Her initial impression was of an arrogant nobleman, but she didn't know when she had started to feel flustered. She pondered for a long time without finding an answer. "He's cuter than before, isn't he?" Melissa, seeing Eli lost in thought, feigned innocence and approached her. "Oh, my princess." She gently stroked her hair and softly asked, "May I sit here?" Elijah looked up, her eyes sparkling. "Melissa?" "Of course." She immediately agreed with a smile. "Sit comfortably." Melissa shyly pulled up a chair and sat next to her. "Thank you." Damien was someone Elijah used to like, and Melissa was the friend who had betrayed her and dated him. Although her feelings for Damien had faded, seeing Melissa again still made her uncomfortable. Eli thought despondently, "What can I do? I guess it's fortunate. It's a good thing we didn't meet last semester." Melissa still acted friendly, even whispering to her like close friends, "Let's be comfortable with each other at school, okay?" Sure." Eli forced a smile. Melissa continued to cling to her. "Thanks. Please help me out at school, too." Suddenly, footsteps approached from behind. Elijah, rockin', hands in his pockets, glanced at her table. "Good morning," she politely replied. "Good morning." Suddenly, Eli's eyes widened as if she had seen something amazing. She pursed her lips and softly asked, "Are you also participating in the art trip?" Rockin casually nodded. "Yes." Eli, puzzled, kept asking him why he was participating when he couldn't draw, leaving him speechless for a moment before he finally answered, "That's why I'm participating." "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Melissa kept glancing over, eavesdropping. Her eyes narrowed, expressing her inner dislike. Rockin finally admitted, "I couldn't just let someone take my seat. I'd be sad." Eli didn't quite understand what he meant. She fiddled with something for a moment, then turned to stare at him, searching for an answer. "Does he mean the seat next to me?" Melissa slammed her hand on the table and stood up. "To be precise, it's not just someone," she said haughtily, tossing her hair back. "It's the princess of the U Rose Duchy." "Ah," Rockin replied coldly, "an allied nation of Octaga." Melissa's eyes narrowed in displeasure, but she still tried to appear as gentle as possible. "Just call me Melissa, since we're at school." He didn't want to argue and walked towards the opposite table, pulling out a chair. "All right, Princess Melissa, I'll give you this seat, just for today." Rockin glanced at her, emphasizing his words as a pointed reminder, a warning. Having just said he'd be sad to give up his seat, Eli's face flushed crimson. She inwardly groaned. He only says things that are easily misunderstood. Melissa placed her hands on her hips condescendingly. "Elijah, you're still so calm when you see me. Is it because of him?" This lack of reaction displeased her, leaving her smug satisfaction unfulfilled. "Elijah, you're a monarch's daughter too. But why are you the only one who gets to inherit the throne? The one everyone admires? Do you plan to hoard it all?" Melissa fumed. If I steal that man from you." She began plotting her disruption. "Will it finally make you blind with jealousy? For someone as perfect as you." She muttered scornfully Melissa chuckled, a sinister chill in her voice. "I want you to experience the most disgusting feeling I've ever known." Ink smeared on Eli's right hand. The teacher at the front of the classroom announced, "Hello, this is our first class, but I hope it's all right if I assign some homework already." She looked over the class. "I'll divide you into groups of 3. Choose one of Iola's works and write a critical essay." The students agreed. "Yes, ma'am." She glanced across the rows and began reading names. "Oh, Group 1, Rockin, Elijah, and Melissa." Eli felt a jolt of horror. After class, her dejected sighs caught Rockin's attention. "What's wrong, Elijah? Are you hungry?" She smirked. "Why do you always ask if I'm hungry?" Rockin shrugged. "You always are." Exasperated, she told him, "Honestly, I was having a nice time with you, and she had to show up. If you're free, let's get some tea and talk about the assignment." Eli was taken aback by the suggestion. "Now then," Melissa put on an innocent facade. Of course, Elijah should join us too. Eli was internally conflicted. She was allergic to this kind of situation. "This is weird. I'm not begging, but..." She forced a nod. Adelicht. "What am I supposed to do?" Rockin replied flatly, "I have an imperial meeting now." Melissa was disappointed that her plan hadn't worked. "Oh." Eli turned to say goodbye. "All right, you should go then." She waved. Turning back to Melissa, she asked, "Melissa, is there something between you and Rockin?" Melissa clasped her hands together, feigning distress. "Oh, what am I going to do?" "Elijah," she pleaded, "I think I've fallen for him." Melissa held Eli's hands, her plea intensifying. "Could you help me?" Eli was stunned. "What, me?" She frowned, confused. "Elijah." Melissa's eyes welled up. "Do you also like Rockin?" Eli recoiled as if struck. She immediately pulled her hands away, anger rising in her voice. "I don't have to answer that, do I?" Melissa lightly stroked her cheek, her words a challenge. I can continue to like him." Eli paused, then replied, "That's your right. You don't need to ask me." A pleased smile spread across Melissa's face. "Thank you." She feigned innocence. "Let's discuss the group project tomorrow." Having seemingly achieved her goal, Melissa quickly left the hallway. "Goodbye." Eli saw it. Was she just declaring war on me? She muttered dejectedly, "I don't like this." "No, calm down," she told herself, pushing down the annoyance in her heart. "Don't let personal feelings ruin the group project. It's not like I don't know he's famous. I have to be rational," Eli told herself, urging herself to stay on track. A sudden meeting after school is difficult." Eli made a suggestion. "How about the weekend?" Melissa replied, "Senior has a meeting then, and I'm busy too." Melissa then suggested, "How about Senior and I go to the exhibition today, and you can go do research at the library?" She immediately shook her head in refusal. "I don't like that." Unexpectedly, Melissa played the threat card. "Oh, why? You said you didn't need the whole group to go to the exhibition. Is it because of what happened yesterday?" It was truly a move that made Eli flinch in fear. Wait, what's she trying to say? Panicked, she quickly corrected her answer. Just kidding. Go ahead and come back quickly. Melissa was pleased with this outcome. Thank you. If we split up the work, it'll be done quickly. Uh-huh. She nodded awkwardly. Rockin remained silent, glancing at Eli every now and then with a complicated expression. After school, Rockin followed Eli Gia. Going back to the dorm, she suddenly turned around, surprised to see the person behind her. Senior. She furrowed her brow and asked, "Aren't you going to the exhibition with Melissa after school?" He shook his head and replied, "We changed it to going together this weekend." Eli Gia questioned further, "But you have a meeting. Isn't it a meeting with the Empire?" He chuckled, reassuring Eli, "I don't need to go. The Imperial Prince has that kind of power. Besides, you said you didn't like it." Oh my, Eli laughed brightly. "If I said I didn't like something, I might have to abandon my whole family." He leaned closer and whispered, "Do you wanna?" Teased by Prince Rockin, Eli quickly held up her notebook to block his words, which made her heart flutter. "I'm scared. I don't dare joke anymore. Just now, when you said you didn't like me going to the exhibition with the princess, what did you mean?" Rockin had noticed it earlier, but only now had the chance to ask. Eli faltered. "What do you mean?" Rockin decisively reiterated her actions from earlier. Eli Gia, at a loss for words, didn't know how to respond. "Oh, that? Are you jealous?" She froze, her eyes widening. Eli dejectedly admitted to him, "If I have to be honest, I guess I'm jealous. I also wanted to see Violier's work in person." Hearing her answer, Prince Rockin smiled. "Is that so? That's great. We'll go to the exhibition together." He gently patted her head, comforting her. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, not giving her time to refuse, he decided on the meeting time himself. "See you at the exhibition hall." Flustered, elevated tutti. She lingered, touching her head, feeling the warmth of his touch from just a moment ago. "Ah, senior." Dressed smartly, Eli waited for him. "But why?" She looked at the person beside him in surprise. "You two came together? Melissa looks beautiful today." Rockin looked dejected, not even bothering to smile. "Really?" She giggled at the compliment. "It was just a coincidence." Rockin mumbled, clearly annoyed. "We met up front. Let's go in." But turning to Eli, he became warm and gentle once more. Melissa walked past Eli. Her eyes narrowed in annoyance as she stared at her. "Elistut frotzen, kontoseth." Did she just cut me off? Inside the exhibition, she watched them from afar. They looked just like a couple. What senior is holding is... Eli paid even more attention to the wrapped gift. It seemed to be sweets. Did Melissa give it to him? She muttered, glancing over at Melissa, who was happily humming a song. He likes that sort of thing. Eli Gia resolved to leave. "I'm tired today, so I'll go alone." The door clicked softly shut. She stood before an exhibition painting, then exclaimed in awe, "It's even more impressive in person, isn't it?" Suddenly, footsteps slowly approached. Close to her, Eli Gia. She shivered in surprise. Prince Rockin even touched her waist, gently asking, "Why have you been avoiding me today?" Eli Gia pointed at herself and asked back with a bewildered expression, "Avoiding you? Me?" Rockin looked directly into her eyes and replied, "Yes." Eli Gia stammered, "No, it's not like that." Then quickly looked away, feeling a pang of guilt. Sharp, Eli Gia searched for an excuse that I was engrossed in the painting, so I didn't notice. Rockin asked, "Are you looking at this painting?" Eli Gia replied, "Yes." "What is it? Is something wrong?" Rockin took out a small, cute gift box. "I had something for you, but I couldn't find you." "Here," Eli Gia asked in surprise. "Isn't this yours?" Rockin enthusiastically explained, "I made it myself. Try it." Eli Gia was even more surprised. "Didn't Melissa give it to you? You made it yourself." Her mind was now filled with question marks. "But why? I wonder if it's good." Eli Gia quickly took the gift box and was about to open it. But Rockin stopped her. "Not now." Eli Gia froze, startled by the interruption. "Why?" Rockin put his hands in his pockets and said casually, "No eating or drinking at the exhibition." Embarrassed, Eli Gia stammered, "Oh, I forgot." Rockin smiled gently and quickly changed the subject. "Anyway, this piece has caught the princess's eye. You have a keen eye." Rockin abruptly shifted to another topic, one that made Eli Gia uncomfortable. "I wonder why my face isn't your type." Eli Gia responded dejectedly, "You still remember that?" Rockin suddenly asked a cryptic question, so after looking at it for so long, "Do you want it?" Clearly, this time Eli Gia couldn't keep up with his train of thought. "What, senior?" She felt her face start to heat up, her eyes darting around, and oh, not at all. Rockin then abruptly doused her with cold water. "Not me, the painting." Eli Gia realized her slip of the tongue. "Oh." Eli Gia cleared her throat, trying to cover her embarrassment. "I do want it, but I'm drawn to it because it feels like the artist's life blends into the painting. Even though he's a famous painter, he's still the son of a coachman. As time goes by, someday I'll be grateful for this day. The painting in front of them seemed to emit a strange light. Rockin remained silent, and the two of them quietly admired the artwork. Melissa had apparently been looking for Rockin for quite some time. She saw him in the distance with Eli Gia. Putting on an innocent expression, she ran over to Rockin's side. "Senior, you're here?" She feigned an interest in art. The large paintings are kept inside. This must be Violeur's last painting. Shall we go? Rockin looked to Eli Gia for her opinion. Ready to go. Eli Gia happily agreed. Yes. Eli Gia brushed past Melissa, seemingly about to say something. No, it turned out she noticed the small gift box in Eligia's hand. Melissa opened her mouth to speak, but stopped. On their way back to the dormitory, Rockin told the two girls they each had a document review assignment, which would be compiled in the next class. One of the girls, probably Melissa, said to Rockin, "Senior, you've worked hard today." Rockin simply replied with a perfunctory, "Yeah." Rockin suddenly said to the platinum blonde, "Eli Gia, we can try the cookies now." Eli Gia was genuinely surprised he'd asked her to do this in front of the girl pursuing him. "What? Now, my skills aren't very good, so please bear with me." Rockin glanced at Melissa. She looked back at him, finding no emotion in his eyes, that it's okay, I have something to do, so I'll excuse myself. Rockin replied, "All right." Both Eli Gia and Rockin watched Melissa's receding figure. As soon as Eli Gia looked back, she was startled by Rockin's intense gaze. Eli Gia sighed, I know, I'll try it." Rockin told her, "I made it in dessert class." Although Eli Gia didn't understand why he gave her this gift. Why the sudden baking? I remember him wondering if he should register for the next term. She still tasted IT must be a coincidence, yeah. Rockin seemed to be eagerly awaiting her assessment. So, how is it? Eli Gia, flustered, wasn't sure how to respond. "It's that good. It suits the general palate. The combination of cookies and flour is also fine." Rockin pressed, "What score would you give it?" Eli Gia hesitated slightly, then replied, 10. Rockin suddenly smiled, his expression clearly showing his happiness. That's a relief. Seeing his reaction, Eli Gia was extremely confused. She silently watched him, thinking, why is he so happy? The maximum score is 100. She said to Rockin, "I'll be going now too. Thanks for the cookies." She turned and walked away resolutely, reassuring herself. What was that? Just let him misunderstand. Eli Gia continued walking forward alone, not noticing someone watching her from behind. As soon as she realized, she immediately turned around and yelled instinctively, You scare me, Melissa. You said you had something to do." Melissa simply said to Eli Gia, "I wanted to talk to you. Were the cookies good?" Eli Gia casually held up the box in her hand to Melissa and said, "If you want to know, try some." Suddenly, Melissa coldly interrupted her. No. Eli Gia was inwardly shocked. What's wrong now? She forced a smile and asked, "All right then, what did you want to talk about?" Melissa abruptly drew a line between Rockin and Eligia's relationship. "You and Senior don't have any kind of relationship. I already asked for permission to like him, so why are you getting in my way?" She stood directly in front of Eli Gia and raised her voice. "Are you making fun of me?" Eli Gia placed a hand on Melissa's shoulder, trying to comfort her. "Calm down, Melissa." She looked reproachful. "Did I look down on you? I haven't done anything." At this point, Eligia's expression became slightly embarrassed. She expressed her sincerity that, on the contrary, she said softly, "I'm the one who's suffering knowing about you, Damien and Rockin. The more I talk, the more my head hurts." Eli Gia said helplessly, "Just forget it." She waved her hand dismissively. "Anyway, I know you're upset, but it's not my problem. Yelling at me won't change anything." Eli Gia reiterated, "So let's just end it here." Melissa froze, watching Eli Gia shut down the conversation. She looked bewildered. Are you just going to keep denying it?" Suddenly, she put on a distressed expression, tears streaming down her face. "That you're that kind of person, you know? Does Senior Rockin know?" Pointing and shouting, she continued, "You know how I feel, but you still act all friendly with Senior Rockin. You think I'm easy to bully, don't you?" Seeing her cry in front of her, Eli Gia thought, whoa, is she crying? Now feeling a bit of sympathy, Eli Gia softly called out Melissa. She expressed her sincerity. "If you only see what you want to see and think your own way, why even bother talking to me? This isn't even a conversation. Instead of wasting time with me, you should confess to Senior Rockin. Unless..." Eligia's eyes changed as she leaned in close and whispered, "You're afraid of rejection, so you're blaming others to hide your own shortcomings." Hitting a nerve, Melissa frowned, looking annoyed. She started to reproach Eli Gia. "Aren't you ashamed?" Used to Melissa's dramatics, Eli Gia sighed. "Princess Melissa, you're a noble, so don't let these petty emotions ruin important matters. I'll excuse myself." Then, she turned and left. Eli Gia walked away from the scene. Her mood soured. Elijah lamented, "Ugh, I have no right to lecture anyone. I even brought up her status. I felt so drained all day." She sighed, "I'm so tired." Elijah recalled what had happened. First Damien, now Senior Rockin. "Even if our tastes overlap, this is too much." She murmured, "Melissa, I won't care about status or other people's opinions anymore. I'm a little envious that you can love so freely without worrying." After Elijah left, Melissa sat on a step. Suddenly, someone appeared. It was Elizabeth. Seeing Melissa sitting there, she couldn't help but be startled. "Oh my, who is this?" Elizabeth sneered contemptuously, pretending to be close to Elijah to get to rockin'. "Aren't we, Melissa?" Melissa, her eyes still watery, admitted, "Yes, that's right." She said resentfully, "I'm Melissa, the one who's always with Senior Rockin'." She added, "But I don't play with people's hearts like Elijah." Elizabeth, standing beside her, muttered, conceited. She then asked pointedly, "Want to be more specific?" Melissa declared, "I'm just being true to my feelings." Even though Elijah knows that, she still... Elijah had mentioned that malicious rumors spread quickly. Elizabeth, despite not having a high status even as a senior, had good connections like a princess. If she could use the princess saying this, Elijah's reputation would be quickly ruined. Melissa recounted, "I was born the princess of the Rose Duchy, with noble blood and radiant beauty, along with elegant manners and profound knowledge. I always attract attention wherever I go. But when I was 16, the day I was supposed to shine the brightest, it was completely taken away by her. During that party, all eyes were on Elijah. People murmured, 'Look at Princess Elijah. She's truly beautiful, isn't she?' The princess is so kind." Seeing Elia and Melissa's happy expressions at the time, I understood why the king cherished her so much. Melissa resentfully listed off how the king's eldest son inherited the throne of Ortygia, while the second son became the duke of the Rose Duchy. Thus, the two nations were called brother nations. Melissa recounted this sadly, but I couldn't stop yearning for things I couldn't have. If the second son were the heir to the throne, everything he had would have been mine. The congratulations he received, the crown he wore, even the seat he sat on, it all should have been mine. Melissa cried out in despair, "No, it should be mine." She added, "Damien Leodric, the duke's son with a dignified appearance and sharp intellect. He's the princess's fiancé. Perhaps that's why I felt envious. Everything else he'd had since birth, but there was no reason I couldn't have that man." Melissa recounted, then at the banquet that Damien also attended, she accidentally spilled a glass of wine on Damien. She exclaimed in a fluster, "Oh," while thinking to herself, "I've tested him." Melissa feigned guilt, saying, "I apologize, young master." Melissa worriedly asked, "What should we do? Your clothes are stained." Damien quickly said, "It's all right, so please don't worry too much." She insisted, but, unable to miss this opportunity, Melissa excused herself. "Ah, my father left a spare shirt in the carriage. I'll bring it for you to change." Damien hesitated, if so. Immediately after, Damien changed his mind and nodded in agreement. "Let me go with you to the carriage." Melissa thought smugly. Approaching him was easier than I thought. He's the son of a prestigious family and engaged to the princess. To avoid unnecessary rumors, he probably only flirts with the daughters of noble families and merchants. He can't trifle with the noble princess, but for me, that doesn't matter. Eli stood from afar, her hands tightly gripping her dress. "That day I saw you." Melissa affectionately leaned against Damien. Melissa will call Dada Damien. She thought, "You saw me too, didn't you, Elijah? You should also experience the pain of having something taken away, shouldn't you?" Time passed. Eli stood on the podium, her voice ringing out. He was born the son of a coachman and began drawing with discarded charcoal. Suddenly, a voice retorted, "What? Really?" This was completely normal. She sighed and continued the story. Later, a nobleman passed by the village. Melissa smirked smugly. Damien, present there, also tacitly understood. Rockin, sitting in the back, whispered, "Elijah said that." Yes. Rockin's eyes darkened upon hearing this. A moment later, Eli finished class, and everyone began to murmur around her. Eli wondered, "What is it? All these eyes on me today." Immediately after, someone chased after her, footsteps echoing with a call, "Eli." Hearing her name, Eli reflexively stopped. It was Sufi. Eli exclaimed in surprise, "Senior Sufi." Sufi replied, "Elijah," appearing slightly flustered and unnatural. "Are you finished with class?" Sufi suddenly suggested they go back to the dormitory together. Eli agreed. A moment later, in a small tea room corner, Melissa was chatting with two other people. Suddenly, there was a call, and Melissa flinched. Lily, sitting next to her, recognized the voice and exclaimed, "Oh my goodness." Melissa feigned composure, smirking as she said, "Oh dear, what's the matter?" She spoke up, "Senior Rockin, you earnestly requested to speak with me. I have a few things I want to discuss with the princess." Lily, understanding the situation, whispered, "Melissa, we'll go ahead." Melissa gave a silly smile and agreed. "Yes, goodbye." Before they left, they didn't forget to encourage her. "Good luck." Melissa set down her teacup and said, "You coming all the way here to find me makes me very happy." She shamelessly added, "I don't want to waste any of this time. Could you sit down, have some tea, and we can talk?" Rockin declined her offer, coldly stating, "I'll only speak briefly with you." Rockin placed his hand beside his teacup, his voice laced with warning, "Princess Melissa Losha." He leaned closer to her, his voice menacing, "I wonder if you know where the recent rumors spreading around are coming from." Melissa nervously clutched her teacup and defended herself. "It seems you have some misunderstanding about me." She feigned curiosity. "Senior, it's kind of you to be concerned about your junior's affairs, but..." She gave him a sly look, her voice challenging. "Where there's smoke, there's fire, isn't there?" Ignoring her cloying act, Rockin threatened, "I'm warning you for the first and last time. Don't complicate things." Rockin added, "I'll be going now." Then he turned and left. Shaken by Rockin's questioning, Melissa seethed, "Elijah, thanks to your princess status, you get everything so easily, don't you?" Suddenly, Melissa called out, "Senior." She feigned a vulnerable demeanor. "I've never lied." But she was met with a cold, gloomy silence. Rejected, her face darkened. Poor Senior Rockin. The tea in her cup overflowed, but her inner thoughts continued to fume. "It seems you're still being led around by that cunning Elijah. You'll have to notice me eventually." Back at the female dormitory, in Sufi and Eligia's room, Eli approached Sufi, bewildered, and asked, the main character in a love drama? Me? Surprise was evident on her face. Seeing her so perplexed made Sufi extremely uncomfortable. Sufi sighed and said, "That's what they're saying." Eli pondered. According to what Senior Sufi said, there are rumors about a love drama between two girls and a boy. I don't know what Melissa said, but I've become a scheming girl with an innocent face, hindering someone else's love. She thought, it's best not to react too strongly to these baseless rumors. She mused sadly. Rejecting those rumors is like letting go of prey. Suddenly, her attitude shifted, but right now, what I'm most concerned about is Senior Rockin, who's caught up in these rumors because of me. In her room, Eli wrestled with her conscience. Maybe I should apologize for dragging him into this. I hate being noticed so much that I don't even want to run for the Lily position anymore. Suddenly, Eli overheard whispers behind the wall. Honestly, you can't know the truth just by appearances. Damien said helplessly to his friend, a noble princess coveting someone else's belongings. Damien sighed, I'm so jealous of Rockin. If I dated Melissa, would Elijah approach me too? His friend replied, how would I know? You're not Rockin. Damien stubbornly said, but what's wrong with Elijah? Isn't she good? Eli was stunned, overhearing their conversation. Just look. Damien chuckled, admitting of course she's good. She's pretty, he said excitedly. So what if her personality is a bit bad? Her family background is good. Suddenly, his friend winked, but Damien, oblivious, rambled on, it's just dating anyway. Eli stood before them with a judgmental look. She thought to herself, it seems like you two are whispering about something very interesting. She sighed inwardly. It's better to know the truth than to be ignorant. But once you know, you can't act like you didn't, can you? Eli spoke up. Can I join in? Her words were like a thunderbolt to them. Eli pressed on. So you wanted to see me, right? Startled, Damien flusteredly denied, no, that's not it. Eli coldly prompted, look me in the eye and tell the truth. Then her expression brightened. You said Eligia's personality isn't very good, but she's pretty. You'd only date me for a while and then break up. She added, you don't even have the courage to say it out loud. The two were dumbfounded by her sudden attack. Eli questioned, do you know that things you say behind people's backs can be exposed? Her gaze turned icy as she looked at him. She reminded him, this is school, so consider yourself lucky. Damien stammered that, afraid Damien would dig himself deeper. His friend quickly covered his mouth, saying in a panic, there's been a misunderstanding. We apologize, Elijah. He bowed Damien's head down. I'm also at fault for not stopping him. I'll reprimand him properly, so please forgive us. Their demeanor appeased Eli somewhat. Then she said, fine, have a good day. She kindly added, don't waste your time gossiping behind people's backs. After Eli had walked some distance away, Damien finally dared to breathe freely. Phew. His friend smacked him on the head in frustration. What misunderstanding? His friend said, did you think the princess was an idiot? Damien, now enlightened, said, no, of course not. His friend reminded him, no matter how much favor you have at school, Elijah is royalty. Their world is completely different from ours. Time passed, and Eli sat at her desk, lost in thought. Suddenly, Rockin approached. Eli greeted him cheerfully. "Good afternoon." Rockin replied, "You too." Eli said awkwardly, "Senior, you heard it too, right? The rumors about me at school." She felt a pang of sadness. "You don't have to pretend you don't know." She added, "I'm sorry for dragging you into this nonsense." Rockin asked, "Did you spread the rumors?" Numero. He seemed surprised. "Then why are you apologizing to me?" She stammered, "Well, because," she thought, "Melissa likes Rockin and sees me as a rival, so she spread the rumors." "I can't say that," she murmured. "Maybe, Senior, they just don't like being the center of attention." Rockin said, "Even if someone is kind, they don't need to apologize for things they didn't do." Eli's face froze. "Yes," she replied, her thoughts in turmoil. "That's true, but I still want to apologize because I feel like I'm involved." The teacher's voice rang out. "Today's lecture ends here. Please submit your midterm reports today." Rockin picked up his bag and stood. "Are you heading back to the dorm now?" he asked. "Let me walk with you." Rockin glanced at Eli beside him, hesitant to speak. Finally, feeling uncomfortable, he said, "Eli." She startled, "Yes?" He asked, "Are we going to continue like this?" She nodded, "Yes." Rockin seemed displeased. "I don't understand." He said her name again, Eli. He stepped closer, meeting her eyes. "That if it's going to be like this, it would be better if there actually was something between us." Hearing Rockin address the issue so directly flustered her. Her reaction seemed to disappoint him. "Why are you so scared?" he asked. "Oh, you really hate me that much?" She stammered. "Oh no, it's not like that." She thought, it would be better if there actually was something between us. What does he mean by that? Does he really want that kind of relationship with me? Eli put on a serious expression. "This is school. I'm keeping my distance because I don't want to bother you, Senior." Her ears flushed red, and her voice trembled. "Oh, it's not that I hate you, Senior." Rockin fell silent, considering her words. Seeing her flustered appearance made him smile. He stepped closer. "I don't mind," he said. "You don't need to worry about what others think when you answer my question. So, when we see each other tomorrow, don't use that excuse to avoid me." With that, he turned and headed back to the dormitory. Then he turned and went back to his dormitory. Eli returned to her room in a complex mood. He's right. Rumors are just rumors. With the decisions I make, what others think doesn't matter. A feeling of joy washed over her, hearing him say those things. I don't know why, but it makes me happy. Eli stepped into her room. Suddenly, Sufi spoke. "Eli, there you are." Eli was startled. "Oh, Sufi, weren't you going to the library to study with Frederick today?" Sufi blushed. "Well," she explained, "the library was too crowded, so I decided to go another time." Eli was curious. "The cafe, too?" Sufi replied, "Yes, I don't like crowded places." Trying to reassure Eli, she added with a smile, "Anyway, I'm older now, so when Frederick and I are together, I have to be more careful." But Eli was still worried. She blurted out, "But you and Frederick are going to get married, right?" Sufi's hand, holding a pen, froze. She fidgeted, then quietly said, "It seems like that will be difficult." Hearing this, Eli was shocked. What? Sufi whispered, "I'm just a commoner." Recalling the moment they exchanged rings, Sufi continued, "Frederick has mentioned marriage before. Of course, I wanted to say yes." Her voice was tinged with fear. "But if Frederick and I were to marry, the nobles would ridicule the was family." Sophie sobbed, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to become a burden in his life." Hearing her confession made Ellie's heart skip a beat. Sophie continued, "Our social standings are different, so I don't want to influence his life." Ellie finished, pulling Sophie into a hug. She whispered, "Senior." Ellie thought to herself, "Perhaps I also understand the feeling of having to give up even the things my heart desires. Because it's not easy to find solace for the emptiness in my heart. There's no other way but to silently embrace these yearnings." Finally, the exam period arrived. Ellie sat at her desk, sighing. She seemed a little tense. "Hey, you seem awfully relaxed," she said. Rockin leaned back, propping himself up with his hand, a serene expression on his face. "Is there a problem? I'd still come out on top, even without studying, wouldn't I?" Ellie ran a hand through her hair in exasperation. "That I'm going to be studying for a while." "Are you planning to just sit there like that?" Rockin replied, "Sure." Rockin offered a flimsy excuse. "Since I couldn't see you during the break, I have to look at you now." Ellie surmised, "It's like he's getting revenge for me avoiding him. He's been clinging to me this whole exam period." She held up a hand. "Wait a minute, Senior," she suggested. "Let's take a break at the cafeteria." Rockin readily agreed. All right. Seeing his cheerful acceptance, she thought, he seems happy. Later, as they enjoyed some cake, she asked, "Senior, what are you going to do during the break?" Rockin sipped his tea to "Let's see." It's been a while since I've gone hunting, so I think I'll go during the break. His answer transported her to the holiday atmosphere. She started to imagine, oh, that sounds wonderful. But a thread of remaining reason pulled her back. No, I have to keep my distance from Senior. Snap out of it. Change the subject, quick. She searched for a new topic. What's your house like, Senior? I'm curious about the popular architectural styles in the Empire. Rockin replied, if you're curious, you can come see for yourself. Ellie nearly choked on her tea. Embarrassed, she wiped the tea from her mouth. Go to the Empire? Me? Rockin pressed her, what's wrong with that? Realizing she dug herself a hole, Ellie mumbled, I'm Ortagian royalty, the princess of a kingdom opposed to the Empire. Didn't you know? Rockin sighed. I didn't know. Princess of Ortagia. Silence hung in the air. Ellie's thoughts raced. This person is so blunt. Rockin reached out a hand. Even so, he began. His hand brushed her cheek, but he quickly withdrew it and pressed it to his own. We can still exchange invitations to visit each other's kingdoms, don't you think? Rockin's straightforward proposal flustered Ellie. That's not difficult, isn't it? Have you forgotten? We're from opposing nations. It could cause trouble for both of us. We're doing fine here at school. Seeing him fall silent, a somewhat gloomy expression on his face. She worried that I asked something wrong. He immediately voiced his thoughts. It seems you're willing to give up a lot just because we're from opposing countries. Hearing this, Ellie hesitated slightly and gave a soft reply. Then she seriously considered the question and thought to herself, now that I think about it, that seems to be the case. She quickly gave her official answer. I understand. I'll think about it after the exams are over, so don't rush me. Having said that, Ellie immediately placed her chin in her hand on the table. Then, she quickly stood up, took a step, and asked, all right, I'll go ahead. Rockin suddenly covered his mouth with his hand and softly added, all right then. The corners of his lips suddenly curved up slightly. Then he suddenly asked, so, right after the exam, you let me know, right? Ellie replied somewhat coldly, I'll tell you during the break. The examination period passed quickly. And soon it was the day the results were announced. Second place? Not bad. Huh? It's great that I was able to maintain that. Ranking. Senior Rockin is still in first place. Huh? He seems to slack off all the time, but he always comes in first. Ellie had just thought this to herself when suddenly someone called out, Elijah. She immediately turned her head and saw Sophie walking towards her, smiling and exclaiming, there you are. I've been looking for you. You're in second place again this time. That's amazing. Ellie smiled politely and replied, thank you, Senior. You also work very hard. Have you finished packing? Sophie's cheeks suddenly flushed red, and she replied somewhat shyly, yes, almost done. Actually, I came here to say goodbye and to ask you a favor. Ellie asked in surprise, a favor? What is it? Sophie mustered all her courage and resolutely suggested, if you don't mind, next year, will you be my roommate again? Sophie's unexpected yet naive request made Ellie speechless for a moment. Then, she smiled brightly and replied, of course. After packing, in front of the dormitory, Ellie eagerly offered, let me see you off to your carriage, Senior. When is it arriving? Sophie replied, oh, the carriage is already here. I'll be going now. Thank you for seeing me off, Elijah. See you next semester. Ellie quickly replied, don't mention it. See you. Then, she couldn't help but think in astonishment. Wow. Could that be Senior Sophie's carriage? Wow. As expected, Senior Sophie really is the rich lady of the Empire. At school, I never paid attention to anyone's background. Then she called out, have a safe trip, Senior. As soon as she finished speaking, the gust of wind created by Sophie's enormous carriage moving caused her to squeeze her eyes shut and quickly raise her hand to hold onto her hat. But perhaps the wind was too strong, as it blew her hat away, causing her to cry out in alarm, just when she thought her hat would abandon her. Luckily, someone caught it. He asked with a hint of reproach, were you planning to leave without saying goodbye to me? Then Rockin fell silent and stared at her for a moment. He continued to reproach her. I'm your senior, after all. That's kind of sad, you know. Ellie quickly retrieved her hat and put it back on. Then, she shyly pulled the brim down to cover her face and replied, it's not that I was intentionally avoiding you, but for some reason. He didn't reply, but crossed his arms and thought for a moment. He then extended his hand and said, your luggage. She didn't say anything more, but quickly handed her luggage to him, and they both walked forward in silence for a while. Then, for some reason, she suddenly felt a pang of nostalgia and said awkwardly, it's strange. A year has passed so quickly. Next year I'll be a senior to someone else. I wonder who my junior will be. Rockin calmly replied, usually, people from the same country are paired together. Hearing him say that, she couldn't help but be surprised and quickly asked, so we really are a special case? He immediately confirmed, that's right. She suddenly broke out in a sweat and speculated, so there's a high chance my junior will be Damien. He curiously asked, your son? She replied, yes, he's my friend and will be enrolling next year. He's Duke Leodric's son. We've been friends since childhood. He's a smart kid, so he'll probably study here. Just as she opened the car door and was about to get in, someone suddenly called out Elijah. Hearing the familiar voice, Ellie immediately turned her head and exclaimed in surprise. Damien, he smiled and replied, so you're with your classmate. He then walked over and gently took her hand. Then he kissed it lightly and said softly, I'm here to pick you up, princess. She smiled faintly and replied, it was quite a journey for you to come all the way here. Senior, I'll be going now. Rockin gave a faint smile and replied goodbye. Just as she stepped into the car, Damien suddenly grinned and said, thank you for bringing the princess here. May I know your name? He didn't answer immediately, but fell silent, thinking for a moment before saying, Rockin. Upon hearing his name, Damien's eyes widened in surprise as he thought to himself, Rockin, the one with the most striking blonde hair among the second-year students. Could he be the prince of the empire? He unconsciously broke out in a sweat and said somewhat hesitantly, it's an honor to meet you. I am. Before he could finish his sentence, Rockin immediately interrupted Damien Leodric. It was my pleasure. You don't need to thank me. With that, he quickly walked away, leaving Damien seemingly with a question on his lips. That evening in the Kasutra Empire, at the birthday banquet in the palace, Rockin was cheerfully greeting the guest in front of him. Your business is booming, isn't it? So this time, I have a proposal to try entrusting the distribution of gems to us. That's something I'd be very interested in. Just then, someone suddenly approached and greeted him, Your Highness. It's been a while. The young man with vibrant pink hair standing before Rockin was Prince Kazmak Chi of the Suddy Kingdom. Rockin replied indifferently, so it's Prince Kazmak. Kazmak suddenly grinned and said somewhat sarcastically, after hearing what people are saying, even though you're in a neutral position, you're quite calculating, aren't you? He then quickly added to himself, of course. I heard my sister complaining about the rose vote. Rockin replied indifferently, is that so? Your sister is also studying at my school. He suddenly remembered the image of Elizabeth writhing and crying on the bed. He couldn't help but feel appalled and exclaim, needless to say, I barely managed to stop her from crying just because she couldn't become Ahon. Perhaps Bet doesn't understand the prince's implication. Regardless of what the prince's implication was, my sister was very upset, and I was heartbroken too. I was truly very sad, Your Highness. Hearing this, Rockin couldn't help but feel a bit suspicious and thought to himself, is this what he wanted to say? Then he said aloud, really? Admirable. Truly a brother who loves his sister. Kazmak, hearing him say that, couldn't help but be taken aback, thinking to himself, are those the only words you'll say? But Rockin didn't pay attention to his reaction and continued to ask, more importantly than that, how is the Suddy Kingdom's mining operation going these days? As I understand it, because there's no sea near those mines, exporting gems is quite difficult, isn't it? There's someone in the nearby area who can help. I'd like to introduce you to Han Wanderker, the owner of the Wanderker Trading Company. Upon hearing the name of the trading company, Kazmak suddenly exclaimed in surprise for some reason. Could it be the Empire's largest distributor? You want to open the door for the Suddy Kingdom? Rockin chuckled softly and said, it would be awkward if you were saddened by me again. Just adhere to the principles of cooperation with Wanderker. Seeing Kazmak about to leave, he quickly explained, Your Highness, you know what I said before was just a joke, right? Why would you compensate with this? Rockin calmly replied, from now on, I'll entrust the distribution to you. If you really want to thank me, then later, help me craft a pair of rings. Having said that, Rockin quickly opened the door and stepped out, leaving the noisy and bustling banquet behind him. He unconsciously looked up at the sky and thought to himself, the winds are getting colder. Where are you now, Elysia? At the same time, in an area seemingly quite far from the Kasucha Empire, Damien suddenly spoke, Princess. Ellie quickly asked, what is it? He didn't beat around the bush and asked directly, I want to ask you something. What do you think of the Prince of the Empire? Before he could finish speaking, she quickly rebuked him. From nanny to you, doesn't anyone trust me? Hearing this, he immediately started to explain, it's not like that, Once again, before he could finish, she quickly reassured him, don't worry, there's really nothing going on. Then she continued to herself, we haven't even hung out alone together. What are people thinking? Hearing this, he smiled gently and said, I see. She didn't reply, but closed her eyes slightly and pondered. Right now, I need to focus on stabilizing my mind rather than paying attention to the prince. Perhaps it's fortunate that my feelings for Damien are different now. I can comfortably lean on Damien's shoulder without thinking too much. My and Damien's fates are predetermined for the benefit of the kingdom. So until then, it's probably best not to interfere in each other's private lives. But then she thought, if the new semester starts, I'll have to answer my senior. The break has just begun, but that I wish spring would come quickly. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story continues with many exciting developments ahead, so don't forget to like and subscribe to support us and not miss the latest episodes. We wish you relaxing and happy moments. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.